Western fantasy, from the Eagle People tribe to the Angel Empire. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination, so don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author. We are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like, and if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 26 Supreme King Amidul. The sun is about to set. The entire Menon plain is ablaze with golden glory. Jiang You abided by the agreement and rushed to the camp of Goblin King Amidul with a group of personal guards along the way. We passed neat and solemn goblin army camps, all in good order. In his eyes, every goblin sergeant holds his head high and is an elite. At the beginning of the founding of the country, the goblins were so elite that they could only dominate the mainland for an era, going deeper and deeper, passing through various goblin levels. We finally came to a huge tent. It was a huge circular tent standing in the center of the goblin camp. Its pure white color looks like a white cloud floating in the green sky outside. 2 rows of goblin soldiers stood quietly, wearing feathered helmets and yellow cloaks, holding spears and swords. They were taller than ordinary goblins. They are the most elite bodyguards under Goblin King Amidul, the yellow-robed guards. Every one of them is an extraordinary professional. Every race that walks through them is like walking through a steel jungle, so terrifying. When Jiang You walked into the big tent, leaders of many races had already arrived. Goblin King Amidul attaches great importance to the strength of the Winged Man Legion and gives Jiang You great respect. He arranged for Jiang You to be seated third at the bottom, second only to the trolls and dwarves, and above the centaur chief. Even the ancient kings knew that the air force was greater than the cavalry. Amidul personally welcomed Jiang You to his seat, which finally allowed Jiang You to get in touch with this legendary emperor of the Goblin clan. In Jiang Yu's impression, and in Chapter 5, from the vague historical records of the elves, this great legendary leader of the Goblin clan was born into the largest goblin tribe in Flanders. At the tail end of the age of titans and dragons, he is extremely talented. In this era where the extraordinary system is backward, it only took him more than 100 years to become a legend. He led the Goblin clan from the slaves of the Titans to the throne of world hegemon step by step. He was the leader of the continent of Flanders in the era of time. The Supreme King of Chapter 2, legend has it that this legendary emperor was extremely powerful. The other 2 legends of the goblins at that time were both strong men. They were able to subdue the Goblin Great Sage and the High Priest, and unite the Goblin clan on the entire continent. It can be seen that the strength and means are extraordinary, and it is by no means easy generation. However, what impressed Jiang You the most was the flawless white spear that Amidul held in his hand, like a shining spear. This is an artifact created by Armiger in search of rare materials from the mainland, using an unknown mysterious forging method, and with the efforts of the entire clan. Armiger's gun. This is a god-killing spear. Armiger used it to kill a titan with his own hands. This is also an unknown gun in the future of the Goblin Empire. Several Goblin emperors, including Armiger, were killed by this Armiger's gun, but this is all something that could happen in the future. Now Jiang You looked at the Goblin King sitting high in front of him, like sitting on a throne. According to the legend of ordinary intelligent races, the lifespan is about more than 1,000 years. Amidul is estimated to be about 500 years old now, in his prime, therefore. His stature looks smaller than that of the races present, but his aura is extremely amazing. Even though Jiang You was afraid that he would become a legend in the future, he still felt admiration for this middle-aged goblin in his heart. The Titans and the ancient dragons had ruled Ferland for countless years. Only he dared to resist, and he succeeded. In the end, time passed again after all the leaders of the clans on Menon Plain had arrived. Amidul finally spoke. His voice is steady, powerful and charming. Chiefs and clan kings, thank you for your willingness to lead your clan and join our clan in resisting the rule of those damn Titans. Think back to that time, when our ancestors became slaves of the Titans. We have become slaves of the Titans for generations. I think everyone here is the same as my race. They are all races that yearn for freedom. No one wants to be a slave forever. That's why we rebel. In my heart, I rolled my eyes several times at Goblin King Amidul's words. The reason for all this is that after the battle between the Titans and the dragons, both sides suffered heavy casualties, which led to the dooming of the Titans and the dragons, which gave the goblins an opportunity, and he can replace it. Not only goblins think so. If Jiang You had the strength of the Goblin clan, it would be him who would say this. Go up. Amidul is still speaking generously. Today, I, Amidul, and all the tribes gathered in Menon Plain to make a blood oath. From now on, I, the Goblin tribe, and all of you here will be brotherly races forever." As he spoke, he took a glass of wine from the attendant, cut his palm with a short knife, and dripped a drop of blood. The wine was immediately stained red with blood. Then he looked at the stunned clan leaders present at this time. A line of goblin attendants brought a glass of wine to each racial leader present. Jiang You was no exception, so he had to imitate his example, cut his palm open and let blood drip at the same time. He complained crazily in his heart, "I don't know where Amagul learned this kind of operation. Anyway, it is the first of its kind in the continent of Ferland to make alliances based on blood." When the leader Amagul saw that all the tribes followed suit, he couldn't help but feel proud. "Everyone, please." After saying that, he drank it all in one gulp. The hundreds of race leaders present also finished drinking. Subsequently Amagul laughed, "We are blood allies and we are brothers and races. After the Titans are conquered, we can divide the continent together." Good, good, Amagul, Amagul. The folk customs at this time were still very simple. Have any of the big guys in Ferland ever seen such an operation? Anyway, everyone present was infected by his heroic spirit and cheered loudly. That's it. The covenant was finalized, and the first step of Armiger's crusade against the Titans was completed. Step 2. It's time to discuss tactics, but the tactics of this era are simple: air to air, ground to ground. Just go all the way. Jiang Yu's mission was to deal with the sky power of the Titan camp, mainly those hawks, griffins, horned eagles, etc. If there is a sky paranormal professional who can fly, Armiger promises to send the Goblin Wind Knights to support them. The mission is simple, but there are too many races. Arrangements were made, one race after another, and the meeting lasted until the afternoon of the next day. Wait until the third day on the highest hill of Menjin Plain. Goblin King Amagul once again made some impassioned remarks about the Titans being unjust and all races fighting together, which greatly boosted the morale of millions of troops of all races, especially the Tauren, all with red eyes, waving stone axes and roaring on tree trunks. So in this atmosphere the army sets out to attack the Titan King's court. Protus. Chapter 27. Protus. Protus is the location of the Titans' royal court. It is said that there is the Titans' capital, built by Titan King Ashmus with millions of slaves in nearly 1,000 years. It is a huge city built on a high mountain, and Mount Protus is the name of this mountain. Excluding the bitter cold places such as the extreme north and the extreme south, Mount Protus is the highest and tallest mountain in the Ferland continent. The Heaven Mountain, where Jiang You and other winged people live, is nothing compared to this mountain. Among the millions of troops, the old chief of the Earth Bear clan introduced Jiang You to the Titan's giant city that he had seen before. The main gate of Protus is 300 meters high, and its walls are 500 meters high. Such a tall gate is specially built for the Titans, but fortunately, there is a small opening of 3 meters high next to the gate, which is the passage for our slave-affiliated race. When we went to Protus, we traveled in this huge city and walked for 3 days and 3 nights. The palaces of the Titans are all huge. I don't know how many people died when building this huge city, but the most shocking thing is the throne of the Titan King. That is to cut the top of the entire Protus mountain into a tall throne. The 500-meter-high Titan King sits on it, as if sitting at the center of the world. That is a transcendent existence that can truly rival the gods. If the Titan King Ashmus is still there, the continental tribes under the Titans will not have the heart to resist. Listening to the description of the old Earth Bear, Jiang Yu's heart arose, a yearning for the Titan King, yearning for his strength and the power of dominating the world. Times have changed. The strength of the Titans is still terrifying, even though there are only a few big and small cats left in the Titans. The Goblin King almost exhausted the power of the whole tribe and allied with half of the races of the Ferland continent before he dared to fight with them. Millions of troops slowly advanced towards Protus. Along the way, there were also many affiliated races under the command of the Titan giants to block them, but they were all mantis arms to stop the chariot, and no splashes could be made. Jiang You also led the Winged Legion to kill a large number of eagle squadrons who came to explore the military situation on the way. With the suppression of the winged people, the once best scout race on the continent was a little struggling, but the Thunder Titan seemed to want to directly fight the army of the Goblin Alliance in Protus. So there were not many enemies along the way. 3 months later, when the million-strong army advanced all the way to the outside of Protus, Jiang You could finally see the appearance of this giant city that was once the Titans. It was different from what Jiang You imagined. The giant city of Protus was a bit miserable at this time. The city wall that was originally built around the mountain collapsed halfway, and only a few Titan palaces in the city were basically intact. The mountain throne of Ashmus, the center of the world, had disappeared, replaced by a flat stone surface. As if something had directly flattened that part of the entire mountain, Jiang You glanced at the ruins here and stopped looking because the war was about to break out in front of the goblins and the coalition forces of various races on the continent. There was a vast army of almost 1,000,000 titans, trolls, eagle men, snake men, mud monsters, ogres, nagas, half-blood giants, cyclops, tree spirits, various monsters, and almost hundreds of other races had long been waiting for the arrival of the Goblin Coalition under the Order of the Titans. What's even more terrifying is that 8 towering titans stood proudly in the army like ancient giants, each of them exuding a powerful and domineering demigod. Or the leader was none other than Atra, the Thunder Titan whom Jiang You had met once more than 100 years ago and even fought for. The opposing team's lineup was magnificent. If Jiang You hadn't known that the goblins and the coalition of various races would win this battle, he might have considered how to die more decently later in the Titan camp facing the crusade of the goblins and the millions of troops of various races on the continent. The Thunder Titan stepped out first and laughed unabashedly. Amagul, are you here to build a giant city for me? These millions of slaves are really good, saving me the trouble of recruiting them. Ha 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 ha. In the coalition of various races on the continent, the Goblin King also rode the Dwarf Wolf King out of the crowd and faced the Thunder Titan. Compared with the Thunder Titan Atari, his figure is like a mountain tenant, which gives people a strong contrast, but his back is as straight as a pine tree, giving people unwavering courage and determination. No wonder he was able to unite the various races on the continent, overthrow the Titans, and establish the Goblin Empire. He is really capable, as expected of a goblin hero from the ancient times. He is 2 different races from the goblins in the 5th chapter, Jiang You thought in front of the army. Amagul didn't care about his ridicule at all. Instead, he raised his head and said to the Thunder Titan Atari with a calm and firm face, Atari, the Titans have fallen, and I will end your glory. After defeating you, I will build a royal city for the goblins in Protus. Your era is over. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Battle of Pro. The Thunder Titan was furious when he heard Amagul's undisguised declaration, the glory of the Titans, even if it sinks into the turbid world, cannot be broken by ants like you, Amagul. You once humbly knelt at my toes and begged for my mercy. Now, I will give you another chance. Kneel down and you can live. Perhaps because the deadly threat in the goblin camp has never been eliminated, the proud Thunder Titan decided to let these people go for the first time. Among the 8 titans present, there are only 3 adult titans. The rest are just minors. Even if they are nearly 100 meters tall, they can't cover up the fact that they are just legends. Atra gave in before the titans reproduced, but Amagul shook his head. He looked firmly at the giant in front of him, who was like a mountain, and shouted loudly, Atari, I hate the shame you brought me. From that day on, I will never kneel down again. After saying that, he raised the gun of Amagul in his hand, flew up suddenly, and attacked the Thunder Titan Atari. Today, we must destroy the Titan. All the troops, follow me to charge. What courage and praise it is to fight against a demigod with a legendary body. The various tribes on the continent behind Amagul saw the scene of Amagul fighting in the air, and millions of troops were inspired by him, and their morale was greatly boosted, and their rush towards the Titans' camp. The war started immediately. The swords of the 2 camps collided, and their bodies were entangled. The tragic fight reached its peak in just a moment, and the most intense place of the battle was the battlefield between Amagul and the Thunder Titan. The expected scene of Amagul being killed by the Thunder Titan or retreating did not appear. Amagul's body was lit up with a red blood energy that was as vast as a wolf smoke through the sky. The orb that was so magnificent was not just a legend, he was clearly a powerful demigod. In Jiang Yu's understanding, this was an advanced demigod knight from the Blood Knight lineage. Unexpectedly, Amagul was actually a demigod. Beside the other 2 demigod titans, there were more than a dozen legends of the Goblin clan fighting with each titan demigod. Of the remaining 5 titans, 3 were blocked by the 3 legends of the trolls and dwarves, and the other 2 were surrounded and killed by 2 elite-looking goblin armies. One of them was Amagul's yellow robe guards. Ferland's legends were not invincible. Although they had the strength of 10,000 enemies and powerful lethality, they could also be killed by mortals below the legend. In the future, a well-trained army of 10,000 people would be able to strangle a long-established legend. Seeing this scene, Jiang You finally understood why Amagul dared to fight against the Titans. The background of the goblins is really unfathomable. More than 20 legends, 1 demigod. No wonder they can build a huge empire in the second chapter, but since you have chosen a camp, you will fight to the end looking at the countless eaglemen, griffins, horned eagles, flying monsters, and wolf bats flying behind the Titan Legion in front of the winged people. Jiang You raised the bronze sword in his hand and shouted loudly, "Today is the battle of fame for my winged people. We are going to tell those pigs flying in the sky that the sky belongs to the winged people's battlefield. Hold our bows and arrows. Hold our swords tight. Defeat them. Let the heads of those guys become our ladder to the powerful tribes on the continent. Kill, kill, kill." Mount Protus is a huge mountain protruding from a plain, and it is surrounded by bare mountains. It is hard not to speculate whether this is a man-made or natural wonder. This place, also called Pro-Plain, is only 1,000 miles long and wide. There are night-language forests on the southwest and east, an oval lake in the east, and a narrow mountain range bordering the northern grassland in the north. This place, with high sky and vast clouds, is naturally suitable for the winged people to fight in the sky facing the opponent's air force of nearly 100,000 people. Jiang You led 10,000 winged people and did not directly resort to physical combat. He commanded the winged people to fly higher and shoot arrows at the opponent at a distance. When the opponent desperately approaches, they will distance themselves. When they really cannot distance themselves, the winged people in the front row will spontaneously drop their bows and arrows, draw their long swords at their waists, and use their blood and flesh to block the approach of eagle men, griffins and horned eagles. Long-range suppression in the sky is fatal. Even the magical creatures griffins, who are powerful individuals and even have extraordinary power of wind, are beaten and flee under such legion power and rogue tactics. Those who have not seen thousands of arrows fired at the same time do not understand its horror. Many years later, this battle became the eternal pain of the eaglemen. Because the eaglemen who had no hands but only claws could never master the bow and arrow. In this way, nearly 100,000 Titan air forces were fooled by Jiang You and others. Unfortunately, Jiang You did not see the figure of the Eagle King in this huge eagle corps. Perhaps, in this battle, although the eaglemen stood on the side of the Titans, they were not necessarily willing to give their all. Not only the continental tribes of the Titans camp, but also the continental tribes of the Goblin camp. The trolls and other tribes also have tribes on the Titan side to participate in the war. Everyone has selfish thoughts. Not to mention these old foxes who have lived for a long time. There are too few races like Jiang You who truly lead the elite soldiers of the entire tribe to participate in this battle to determine the fate of the Ferland continent. This is also one of the reasons why the Goblin King treated the winged people with courtesy. Jiang Yu's attitude was indeed very high. A few hours later, the battle in the sky ended. After 3,000 casualties, the winged people won the final victory. So far, the air legion of the Titan camp in the sky of Protus has been cleared. Then the winged people returned to the rear camp to replenish the loss of bows and arrows, ate some food, rested for a while, and then went out again. The war is not over yet. Jiang You let the winged people freely harass the tribal armies of the Titan camp with a team of 50 people, and he took hundreds of extraordinary winged people to participate in the siege of the Titan giants. When he returned to the sky again and looked down at the earth on the Protus plain, millions of troops were dead and blood flowed like a river. The legends of the Titans and the Goblin tribes fought to the death. Only then did he notice why more than a dozen Goblin legends could fight against the strongest demigods like the Titans. It turned out that each Goblin legend had a strange alchemical item in his hand, and in the center of the Goblin army, there was also a camp full of strange alchemical creations, firing at the Titans. In Jiang Yu's opinion, these things were extremely similar to the super cannons in his previous life. Chapter 29 Victory. When Jiang Yu's winged army joined the battlefield on the ground, facing the rain of arrows from the sky, the morale of the soldiers of various tribes in the Titan camp suddenly dropped. The commanders of the goblins laughed at this. Stupid Titan slaves, your defeat has entered the countdown. But the tribes of the Titan camp did not collapse after all. They looked at the center of the battlefield, where the Thunder Titan Atra was suppressing the Goblin King Angelic, gritted their teeth, and persisted in the rain of arrows from the sky. The leader of the more civilized troll clan shouted, "Raise the shield, raise the shield." The less civilized mud monsters raised the enemy's corpse above their heads. As for the wild boars, ogres, and half-blood giants, after being hit by the arrows in the sky, they launched an even more violent attack on the other side of the sky. Jiang You led a few hundred extraordinary winged troops to a young-looking Titan giant. This is an underage Titan, but it also has legendary strength. With its tyrannical body and huge magic power, it is wielding a long whip of unknown material and fighting with a dwarf legend. So Jiang You led his army to them. "Winged people, listen to my orders, aim at the vital points, and shoot light armor-piercing arrows together. This is the development and utilization of the power of light by the winged people. First round. Suddenly, hundreds of specially made bronze-long arrows wrapped in scorching light shot towards the vital parts of this underage titan. After the launch, Jiang You didn't care whether it worked or not, and flew behind the titan with the extraordinary winged people. Second round. Neck. 10th round. Valley Gate. After 10 rounds of extraordinary arrow rain, the underage titan let out a weak wail. He was covered with the wounds. The angry titan vented the torrent of sand and dust in the direction of Jiang You and others, but the winged people who had been prepared for a long time avoided it. The dwarf legend took this opportunity to swing the iron axe given by the goblins and beheaded him. The head of the underage sand titan fell to the ground. The entire battlefield suddenly fell silent. This was the first titan to die at the hands of a mortal race other than the titans and dragons. It turns out that mortals can really defeat the gods. On the entire battlefield, soldiers of all races belonging to the goblin camp burst into earth. Shaking cheers in the center of the battlefield, the Thunder Titan Atra watched the underage Titan's head being tied up with ropes by a group of mortal slaves, and then hung in the air by the winged people to promote the power of the mortal race, and finally became furious. Thunder and blood burst out of his golden eyes. A vast power suddenly rose up, and the originally clear sky was instantly covered by black clouds. Ants! Ants! How dare you blaspheme the gods! I will kill you all on this land. Rumble. 18 lightning bolts connected to the sky were like 18 pillars hanging down from the sky. With just this one strike, tens of thousands of people died under the thunder. At the same time, the law of thunder began to riot. A crisis of world destruction emerged in everyone's heart. However, at this moment, the mighty Thunder Titan suddenly felt a palpitation. The white gun originally held in Angeli's hand suddenly burst out with an unparalleled silver brilliance. And the sense of crisis as if the blood was locked could no longer be shaken off. At the last moment of his life, he only heard the damn ant goblin king sighing like pity. Holy spear, penetrate him. Then a strange mechanical sound sounded softly around Atra. The law of thunder sequence riots. Space disorder. Lock the blood of the human race. Lock the source of its extraordinary judgment. Penetrate. Clang. The dazzling light swept across the entire battlefield, and everyone's eyes turned wide and they were temporarily blinded. Then when they opened their eyes again, they felt a chill in their hearts. They saw that the once powerful and invincible Thunder Titan had fallen down, and was about to die. The dying Titan looked at the equally surprised Goblin King Angel in front of him, and there was no longer any arrogance in his eyes. At the last moment of his life he forced himself to stand up and shouted at the two adult Titans not far away, Badix, Amix, take the children away. Atari. The eyes of the two adult Titans were red. Go. Remember, you must find my King Ashmis. Revenge for us and revive the Titan clan. Go. Soon the stars lit up on the bodies of the remaining Titans. In a flash, the remaining 6 Titans disappeared on the spot without a trace. At this time, the Goblin King Angel, who seemed to have just reacted, shouted angrily, will the proud Titan flee in despair? Atari, I will chop off your head and use your skull as the gate of my future Goblin capital. I will make you live forever and ever, guarding the gate of the capital for my Goblin clan. In the center of the battlefield, Atari, the Thunder Titan, who was only breathing a breath, heard this in his heart. A huge amount of resentment and anger overflowed again, and the last breath he had held onto was quickly removed, and he finally fell down again and died completely. Seeing that the Thunder Titan was completely dead, and looking at the 6 Titans who were teleported through the unknown star realm, Amagula was greatly relieved. No one knew that he was already at the end of his strength, relying on the full body equipment that restrained Titans obtained in the human refuge. He was only beaten from beginning to end but not to death, and half of the 20 or so Goblin legends he brought were killed or injured in the battle. Although the spear of Angel killed the Thunder Titan Atra with one blow, he was not sure to defeat the remaining 2 Titan demigods, because the energy in the spear of Angel was only enough to be used once. He underestimated the strength of the Titans. Fortunately, the spear of Angel frightened the Titans and let them escape. Angel stood on the air, looking at the mountains and rivers under his feet and the awe-inspiring eyes of all races. And he couldn't help but feel intoxicated, when there was silence between heaven and earth, and the empty pro-plane seemed to only hear the sound of the wind. He called back the spear of Angel, raised it high, and shouted loudly, "We! Victory!" Chapter 30 Advice. As Angel finished speaking, a warm cheer broke out between heaven and earth. Everyone was excited. They defeated the former god. The various races in the Goblin camp were jubilant, and they remembered the promise of the Goblin King Angel. The races in the Titan camp were ashen, and they felt that they had bet on the wrong horse in the sky. Jiang You naturally would not spoil the fun. He also flapped his wings and raised his bronze sword, cheering for the arrival of a new era. He and the winged people were not strong enough, and now was not his era. The Goblin King Angelic, who was enjoying the cheers of all races in the air, looked at the cheers of the various races on the earth, and the winged people soaring in the sky excitedly, and happily announced loudly, "My people, allies of the goblins, today, we have defeated the Titans who have ruled Ferland for countless years and become the masters of the earth. From now on, no one of our people will be recruited to participate in those long-lasting wars, and no one will become a slave to the Titans and dragons. Our people will live in peace." Thinking back to the past, the Goblin King might be really happy. He was so tired that he talked a lot in the sky. At the end of the words, he finally talked about some arrangements for the future. "I will abide by my oath and build the Goblin King city in Protos. I will be crowned as the Goblin Emperor after the city is completed. At that time, I will divide the land for each tribe. In addition, the goblins are willing to share the Titan's legacy with all tribes." As soon as these words came out, the cheers of the tribes on the continent became even more enthusiastic. They followed the goblins to fight against the Titans. Isn't it because they want these things? Next, the continental coalition forces of the Goblin camp will try to capture the coalition forces of various tribes under the command of the Titans who participated in this battle. These captives will become the spoils of the victors and will be distributed as slaves to various tribes on the continent. At night, the Goblin King distributed a large amount of beef and mutton, fine wine and delicious food in the military camp and held a grand victory banquet. The kings and leaders of various tribes were invited to the outside of Angelic's camp to hold a more sumptuous night banquet in front of the grand bonfire. When Jiang You brought a few guards here, he happened to see an extremely large palm roasting on the huge bonfire. A group of goblin chefs were busy sprinkling various spices on this palm. Jiang You saw at a glance that this was the hand of the Thunder Titan Atra. This Thunder Titan Atra is really unlucky. He was roasted and eaten by the goblins after his death. He whispered to the little turtle on his shoulder. The little turtle nodded and also felt that it was inappropriate. "Leave a way for others so that we can meet again in the future." Jiang You did not comment on the goblins' behavior. Perhaps this is also the reason why the Goblin Empire is in such a miserable state after its fall. Before taking his seat, Jiang You first came to the throne of the Goblin King Angelic to pay his respects. Angelic is now full of pride, followed by 8 goblin maids, and the loyal yellow-robed guards stand far away, and the white spear that shocked the continent was inserted next to the throne, proclaiming the authority of the Goblin King. Jiang You was very envious of this white spear on the throne. Seeing Jiang You coming to pay his respects, Angelic was very happy. The winged people are a rare race that came with all their clans to support him. "Jiang You is here, take a seat quickly. The banquet is about to begin." Good guy. He was called the Winged King before, and now he is Jiang You, but Jiang You didn't care and directly stated his purpose. "Your Majesty, now that the Titans have been destroyed, I wonder what arrangements your Majesty will make for those races that have turned to the Titans." Of course, they will conquer and destroy them. The establishment of an empire requires a large number of slaves. What if they surrender and voluntarily submit? Jiang You continued to ask. "If they are not die-hard Titans, then they can be allowed to survive." "I am not a cruel person." Angelic frowned and thought for a while, then said, "There are too many races on the continent affiliated with the Titans, and the living area is too wide. If they really want to be wiped out, it will take a lot of time and energy. It is naturally best if they can surrender and submit, and his current role is the Emperor of the continent, so naturally the more races he rules, the better." Although he defeated the Titans, he yearned for the prestige and status of the Titan King, and considered the issues more comprehensively. After hearing what Angelic said, Jiang You thought that people really change, and the goblins are the same. He said quickly, "Your Majesty, the Winged Clan and the Eagle King Court have an irreconcilable blood feud. If the Eagle King Court submits a letter of surrender, please do not agree to it." The Eagle King Court actually has a blood feud with the Winged Clan. Angelic was very surprised. However, compared to the Winged Clan, who was close to him, he had no good feelings towards the Eagles who were against him. "Your Majesty, my ancestors and fathers all died because of the Eagle King Court and Titan." Jiang You said frankly, "I understand that the Eagle King Court is not qualified to live on the same continent as us. However, if you go to destroy the Eagle King Court, you need the help of our legend. I heard that the Eagle King of the Eagle Clan is also a legendary strong man. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. The old king is not to be feared. I can deal with it." "Okay." Just after Jiang You left, a white-haired goblin old man hurried over from behind. "Your Majesty, what you just said is not right." Angelic frowned. "What's wrong?" The white-haired old goblin seemed not to notice the dissatisfaction of the Goblin King Angelic, and continued, The eagle people cannot be completely wiped out. If the tribe is completely wiped out, the winged people will become the only sky race in Ferland, and no one can control them. Griffins, horned eagles, and two-headed flying dragons are all monsters, and they can't become a big deal, of course. This is also because, at this stage, the profession of Griffin Knight has not been developed. But I just promised him. Amagul was shaken. What you promised is that you would flatten Chyanshan Mountain and wipe out the Eagle King's court. If one or two eagle princes escaped from the Eagle King's court, it would be normal. There are so many eagles scattered on the continent, it is not difficult to rebuild an Eagle King's court, but in this way, will it seem like you are going back on your word? How can it be going back on your word? Your Majesty is now the supreme monarch of the entire continent and the king of all kings. You should consider things from this perspective. Hearing this, Amagul felt that it touched his heart, and he was convinced. That's what the great sage said. Let's do it. Chapter 31, Flattening Chyanshan Mountain. Late at night the sea of stars is like a dream. The Protus plain is as bright as day under the illumination of the flames. The huge bonfire in front of the king's tent is filled with seats for the kings and leaders of the various tribes on the continent. On the bonfire, the palm of the thunder titan that was roasted was only a skeleton, as meat was distributed by the Goblin King to all the leaders of the various tribes on the continent present. This not only reiterates their feat of defeating the Titan giant, but also declares that the Goblin tribe replaced the Titan as the ruler of the continent, as one of the important allies of the goblins. Jiang You also got a piece of Titan meat. The Titan meat that has been specially processed no longer has the original explosive characteristics, and the taste is extremely delicious. After all, this is the flesh and blood of a demigod. After this banquet, the Ferland people seem to have broken a kind of shackles and overcome their innate fear of titans and dragons in the future. Bathing in dragon blood and eating dragon meat will start from this moment, and the dragon tribe will continue to do so despite repeated bans. So in the bloodline of the dragon, the titans are not only enemies, but also pitfalls. Halfway through the night banquet, just as Jiang You was watching the troll clan leaders in front of the campfire with interest, fighting drunken boxing bare-chested, an old human found Jiang You privately. Respected winged king Jiang You, I am one of the humans who walked out of the shelter. Yang Yan, are you also a human from the previous era? Jiang You asked curiously, and the old man's appearance made him feel close to him. Yes, the old human nodded and smiled. Fiona told me that Lord Jiang You was born in the Eastern human race, and we are from the same source. No wonder I feel so close to Lord Jiang You. Ha 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 ha, I think so too. Jiang You laughed. So, why did Lord Yang Yan come to me? I heard from Fiona that Lord Jiang You likes to be straightforward, so I'll be straightforward. I wonder if Lord Jiang You knows about enchantment technology. You actually have enchantment technology? Jiang Yu's eyes lit up and he said in surprise, in the future, enchanters are one of the most popular professions in Ferland. To be honest, enchantment technology is a kind of extraordinary technology that we have developed by combining the technology of the human race with the extraordinary power of this era. At present, we have developed a total of 3 enchantment technologies. They are fire, lightning, and wind. We are willing to hand over these 3 enchantment technologies to you, Yang Yan said solemnly. So, what do you want? Jiang You asked. After a few hundred years, when the human race is exiled from the continent, Lord Jiang You can protect some of the human race and pass on the enchantment technology to them. The old man of the human race said, okay, I agree. But I can't imagine that you are so pessimistic about the future of the human race. Jiang You nodded solemnly and asked the old man's side. After hearing this, Fiona must have told you that the goblins both use us and guard against us. Although Amagul provides us with shelter, he always believes that the human race has the potential to dominate the continent. For the hegemony of the goblins, our human descendants are not allowed to learn the knowledge we have. Without the inheritance of knowledge, the human race will only be one of the ordinary intelligent races in the Ferland continent in the future, and will not pose a threat to the goblins. Yang Yan said pessimistically, can't you send some of the people away quietly? Jiang You made a suggestion. We have tried, but before all the people in our generation of shelters are gone, the human race cannot leave the side of the goblins. Yang Yan shook his head. It's really cruel. This is to keep these people from the shelters in captivity until they die? Jiang You felt sympathy for the human race's experience after hearing this, and also had a better understanding of the goblin race. When the birds are gone, the good boughs are hidden. This is a way to share adversity, but not wealth. Although Amagul has divided the various races on the continent, Jiang You feels that the goblins will not be so generous. That night Jiang You obtained the enchantment technology of the human race and was in a good mood, but in fact, What he didn't know was that night, the human race not only found the winged people, but also found dwarves, mermaids, dwarves, goblins and other races in the future rise of the human race. Many races have helped the human race more or less because of the efforts of their ancestors. The dwarves have since possessed superb foraging technology, the mermaids have since possessed powerful sonic spells, the goblins have more changes in the use of elements, and the dwarves, for the inheritance of the human race, these human races who came out of the shelter can be said to be broken-hearted, and they have exerted their own energy to the extreme. The second day Jiang You bid farewell to the Goblin King Angelic, left the wounded to recuperate, and led the remaining winged army to Xianshan. 10 days later Jiang You and others finally arrived above Xianshan. Nearly 8,000 winged warriors flapped their wings over the Xianshan mountains. They carried longbows and long swords, and were extremely elite and ready to go. Below in the Eagle King's court on the Xianshan mountains, one eagle warrior after another stood on the mountain, looking at the winged army arrayed in the sky with worry on their faces. What they feared was not the winged people, but the victorious camp represented by the winged people. At this time an eagle messenger took off into the air and flew towards Jiang You. He shouted loudly, "Respected winged king, please stop what you are doing. The eagle man's messenger has already set off for Protus a few days ago to submit a letter of surrender to the great king of all kings, Amagul, and request to join. Please wait a few days. The Eagle Man clan will definitely get the forgiveness of His Majesty Amagul." Hearing the words of the Eagle Man's messenger, Jiang You sneered and shouted without hesitation, "No need. The Eagle Man's royal court is not qualified to survive in Ferland. Amagul will not accept your surrender either. Today, I will trample the Xianshan mountains and destroy your Eagle Man's royal court." After saying that, regardless of the Eagle Man's messenger's pale expression, he raised a longbow in his hand and shouted loudly, "My sons, the blood feud of 9 generations will be avenged today. Kill." With an order the winged people raised their weapons and roared loudly, "Avenge the blood feud of 9 generations, kill." Trampling the Xianshan mountains, kill. Almost instantly, dense arrows were fired at the Eagle Man on the Xianshan mountains. The battle broke out. The eaglemen standing on the Xianshan mountain were caught off guard and fell down in a large number. Blood flowed everywhere, and the red color filled the entire mountain. At this moment, all the eaglemen knew that the negotiations had broken down, and a large number of eaglemen took off into the air and killed the wingmen. Although they were afraid of the power of the goblin camp, they were all killed in their hometowns. If they did not resist, they would be fools. As early as a few days ago, the eaglemen scouts discovered the movements of the wingmen's army, but they were just lucky. Tens of thousands of royal court eaglemen flew into the air to kill, and the wingmen once again took advantage of their long-range bows and arrows, using the previous sky warfare methods to kill the eaglemen step by step. Even if the extraordinary strong men among the eaglemen were faster, they were blocked by a similar number of wingmen professionals. Originally, the eaglemen had more extraordinary professionals than the wingmen, but unfortunately half of them died on the battlefield of the Titan and Goblin Alliance. Seeing that the morale of the eaglemen was about to collapse, a loud shout with full of energy rang out in the largest stone palace on Xianshan mountain, "Damn wingmen, you are going too far." Then a strong eagleman, who exuded a strong wind breath and was like a typhoon passing through, rushed towards Jiang You and his group. He wore a golden crown on his head, covered with dark black feathers, and was tall, half a head taller than ordinary eaglemen. At first glance, he was very majestic. This was the only legend of the eagleman, the Eagle King Lexiles. He was the strongest profession of the eagleman, the legendary advanced of the Sky Warrior. Legendary profession, King of Storms. Chapter 32 Killing the Eagle King. Faced with the attack of the old Eagle King, Jiang You asked the wings to stay away from this airspace and continue to kill the army of the Eagle King's court, and he stayed where he was, ready to meet this old legend. Legend, in the Ferland continent, is basically the highest combat power of a tribe. An ordinary tribe may need dozens of generations of inheritance to have the conditions for the birth of a legend. From extraordinary people to professionals, from formal levels to hero levels, it often takes a tribe a lot of time and resources, and it takes blood and fire, and the birth of a legend is a symbol of a race becoming truly powerful. A legendary strongman has a lifespan of at least 1,000 years. And it is so lucky to be able to protect the race for 1,000 years as the only legend of the Eagle people. The old Eagle King is already very old. Eagle people are not immortal species. In this era, the average lifespan of ordinary Eagle people is about 50 years old. Although he looks like a middle-aged Eagle man, the old Eagle King has lived for 900 years and has few years left. His body functions are weak and his strength is not as good as before, so he tends to be cautious in doing things, such as the battle between Titan and Goblin. As a tribe of eaglemen who have been loyal to Thunder Titan for generations, they did not fight with all their strength for the future of Eagleman royal court. The biggest regret of the Eagle King is that no new legend has been born among his descendants. Now there are no talented people among his princes and grandchildren. Although there are many young eaglemen with excellent talents in the tribe, the Eagle King is unwilling to pass on the legendary advanced profession inherited by the royal family to these talented eaglemen. The position of Eagleman King can only be done by his descendants. In fact, he sometimes regretted it in the early days, when he was young and strong. There was a prince with extraordinary talents who became a professional of the hero level in just a few decades, but for the sake of his own rule, he conspired to ruin his son's extraordinary path, causing him to commit suicide and banish his descendants from the royal court. It is said that this small tribe settled down on a small hill in the east and spread out, above Cheyenne Mountain. The old Eagle King, who was wrapped in the power of the storm, flapped his wings in the air, holding a bone spear, and rushed towards Jiang You with murderous intent, and he was very angry. Originally, his plan was to surrender to the Goblin King and let the Eagle King's court continue to exist, and he also chose a son with the strongest strength as the next Eagle King, and he was not worried about opposition from the tribe because those tribesmen with good talents were sent to the battlefield between Titans and Goblins. In this way, many years later, his descendants will be born into legends, and the eagles will be able to rise. But now, the Winged Legion led by Jiang You is going to wipe out his court, and from what Jiang You said, they, the eagles, have lost the opportunity to surrender, and his court is really in danger. This made him want to tear Jiang You into pieces. It's so hateful. At this time, when he rushed into the sky and killed the winged leader, he saw that the winged leader was not afraid, but drew his sword, calmly, waiting to fight with him, which made him laugh again. Ignorant winged man, how can a hero like you resist the power of legend? When approaching Jiang You within 50 meters, the Eagle King raised his bone spear, and the wild storm power surrounded him. The legendary rhythm radiated around him, and a legendary field composed of storms enveloped Jiang You. Storm field. Suddenly, in the field, dozens of wind spears composed of storms roared towards Jiang You, and the legendary momentum pressed on Jiang Yu's body at the same time. The Eagle King himself accelerated instantly and rushed forward with the spear, facing the Eagle Man's violent attack. Jiang Yu's purple eyes lit up with a dazzling light behind him. Pure white light shone on the white wings, and soon, two more wings of light composed of light appeared. His speed suddenly became more than a bit faster, like dancing on the tip of a knife. He narrowly avoided all the attacks of the Eagle King. Then, Jiang You held the bronze sword horizontally, and the purple violent thunder swayed on the sword. When the Eagle King's bone spear stabbed into the air, he chopped the Eagle King's black wings with a sword. The blood flowed, making the Eagle King even more angry. In an instant, Jiang You was like a small boat in a stormy ocean. However, the strong fighting consciousness brought by the champion's will made it difficult for the Eagle King to hurt Jiang You even if he occupied the right time and place. Instead, he was endlessly consumed by Jiang You. In the end, amid exclamations, the Eagle King's hands were cut off, his wings were broken, and he fell to the ground. He was still old and could not fight for a long time. If he was young, Jiang You might not be his opponent. Facing Jiang Yu's pursuit, the Eagle King, who fell to the ground, smiled bitterly. I am willing to surrender and become a vassal of your winged people. No need. The Eagle King's court will be destroyed today. Jiang You refused coldly. He also folded his wings and landed on the ground, step by step walking towards the fallen Eagle King. The Eagle King was desperate, and he finally couldn't help asking, why do you have to put my people to death, Eagle King? Do you still remember the Eagle tribe of Gaoman Mountain? The Eagle tribe of Gaoman Mountain, the Eagle King pondered. You may not remember, but we do. The ancestors of my winged people are from the Gaoman Mountain Eagle tribe. When we were weak, it was your Eagle King court that drained the blood of the Gaoman Mountain tribe time and time again. My fathers and ancestors were all used as cannon fodder on the battlefield of the Titans and Dragons. Today, we are here to seek revenge. Didn't expect that the high and mighty Eagle King court would eventually be destroyed by the small tribe that once looked down upon. Jiang You laughed loudly, and without waiting for the Eagle King to say anything, he beheaded him with a sword. When the hut flew in the sky, the Eagle King suddenly thought of something. Back then, wasn't the place where the descendants of that most outstanding son lived in Gaoman Mountain? If I hadn't done that at the beginning, would the ending be different? With endless regret, the Eagle King's consciousness fell into darkness. Chapter 33 Legend, Blazing Holy Thunder. You killed a legendary Eagle King, experience plus 5,000. The prompt that the system sounded at the right time did not affect Jiang Yu's thinking. Standing on Cheyenne Mountain, in front of the body of the Eagle King, Jiang You slightly lowered his long sword dripping with blood. He looked at the sky, where the winged people and eagles were fighting. Although the number of winged people was smaller, under the suppression of tactics and long-range arrows, the eagle warriors of the royal court were no match at all. So, when Jiang You killed the Eagle King, the eagles who were still fighting on the entire Anshan mountain were all shocked. The king is dead. The king is dead. Some people couldn't believe it. How could it be? The Eagle King is a legend, but he was killed by the heroic Winged King. The fighting spirit of more eagles instantly fell to the bottom. They were not opponents of the winged people, and now that their king was dead, they were even more frightened. In fear, a small number of eagle warriors began to flee, and then, as if in a chain reaction, a large number of eagle warriors began to flee like an avalanche. Under the blood feud of 9 generations, the winged warriors chased the enemy northward, leaving tens of thousands of corpses floating on the surface. On the other side of Anshan Mountain, in the corner of the Eagle King's court, a short figure in a cloak smiled at a tall young eagle. How about it, Prince Ford? I'm right. The old Eagle King is no match for the Winged King. Now, can you come with me? The young eagle looked ugly, with a large amount of fear in his eyes. He took a deep breath and said sadly, as you said, the Eagle King's court has been destroyed. I am willing to go with you, the right choice. In the future, we will help you rebuild the Eagle King's court. Excuse me, when? Of course not now. What you have to do is to gather most of Ferland's eagles. Yes, looking at the scattered eagles, looking at the flames and the collapsed Eagle King's court standing next to the body of the old Eagle King, Jiang Yu's obsession suddenly dissipated, and a feeling of spiritual clarity ran through his body. As if a blessing came to his mind, his spirit began to leap, and a little spiritual light led his mind into the sea of spirituality in an instant. Between the outside world and heaven, brilliant light and purple thunder suddenly appeared, controlling half of the sky of Anshan Mountain. And in the sea of spirituality for the first time, Jiang You condensed his own will halo in it, which was a brilliant halo of purple and white. Under the rotation of purple and white light, a large number of thunder elements and light elements were close. A trace of the law of thunder and light was touched, and the power of the law was projected on the halo. In this way, under the effect of the power of the law, almost at the same time in the outside world, a domain constructed by the power of thunder and light was formed. You awakened the legendary domain, the Holy Thunder domain, and in the domain Jiang Yu's body also changed. His body was more perfect, his face was more handsome, unlike ordinary people, and his silver long hair was soft and faintly glowing. The wings behind him were pure white, but upon closer inspection, the power of light and thunder flowed on them. Silver hair, purple eyes, white wings, blessed by the power of light, blooming with the power of thunder, a sacred aura rises spontaneously, and in his blood, the rolling life energy was like spring. The system prompt also sounded. Your blood has completely evolved, and you have awakened your blood talent, immortal seed. Your blood failed to drive the sublimation of the race blood, and the talent of the immortal seed is not suitable for the race you are bound to. You have advanced to the legendary profession, Holy Thunder Blaze. You have awakened the legendary characteristic, Divine Power. You have awakened the legendary characteristic, Sacred Heart. Chapter 34, Crowning the King. The birth of every legendary profession will awaken legendary characteristics. Different professions have different legendary characteristics. Generally speaking, legendary professions will only awaken one characteristic. For example, the legendary feature of the awakening of the Eagle King, Storm Lord, is a feature that enhances storm control, but Jiang Yu's situation is somewhat special. With the help of King Shi, he absorbed the extraordinary blood of the 2 titans and awakened 2 extraordinary powers, thunder and light. Therefore, 2 legendary characteristics were awakened. One is passive and the other is active. Divine Power. The damage caused by the power of thunder is doubled. Sacred Heart. Enter absolute combat status. With a blessing of 2 legendary characteristics, once he advanced to legend, he had a strength that was not inferior to that of the veteran legendary powerhouses. However, what pleased him even more was the complete sublimation of his bloodline, immortal seed. It means that he has a longer lifespan, which allows him to go further. In the future, it is possible to get a glimpse of the throne of God. However, he fell into deep thought when he saw the information in the system prompt that the winged race had not evolved into an immortal species. In his conception, the winged people should be an immortal race comparable to the future elves. But now, although the lifespan of the winged people is slightly higher than that of the eagle people due to bloodline variation, they are still like ordinary races. All ethnic groups in the mainland today except for the dragons, only the dwarves have a longer lifespan, reaching 300 years old, because their ancestors have the blood of titans. The rest are within 200 years old. So, how do elves do it? Just as Jiang You was deep in thought, a burst of high and enthusiastic cheers suddenly erupted from the sky and the earth across the Shianshan mountains. He woke up suddenly, raised his head, and looked at the sky above his head. The winged warriors all over the sky raised their white wings one after another, holding high their long bows and swords. They looked at him and cheered. The corpses of the eagles are spread all over the mountains and plains on the Shianshan mountains, and the collapsed Yingren royal court is flowing with blood and flames. The blood feud of 9 generations was avenged today. The hero's peak, which has been trapped under the legend, has broken through. The winged people have their first legend, and they have officially entered the stage of being a powerful clan on the mainland. These are all reasons for the wingers to cheer fiercely. Facing the cheers of the tribesmen, Jiang You remembered the promise he made to the tribesmen before setting off. He put away the holy thunder domain, raised his white wings, and ascended to the sky. His clear voice spread throughout the land and sky of Shianshan Mountain. People, I once said that the winged people have accumulated strength for hundreds of years. Once they rise up, they will avenge the blood of the 9 worlds, flatten the Shianshan mountains, and shatter the royal court. Now, we have done it. The hawks of the royal court who once despised us all lie on the ground. The Hawk King has only one stupid head left. The Shianshan mountains tremble under our feet. Countless hawks of the tribe no longer suffer from slavery. People, I once said that the crown should be born in blood and fire. Today, at this time, I will be crowned king in this mountain of corpses and sea of blood, in the ruins of the collapsed royal court. At this moment, a big hole appeared in the clouds in the sky. The sun was shining brightly in the sky, and a bright golden light shone on Jiang Yu's body, making him look like a god or a saint. The mountains crown me. The scorching sun forges my golden crown. From today on, I am the king of winged people. Jiang Yu's declaration echoed throughout the mountains and rivers. The sound of the announcement has just fallen, like the echo raised by the waves of the sea, like the echo coming from the mountains. Winged people all over the sky raised their arms and cheered, King, King, my clan has a king. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Sky Lord. Be crowned as queen in Shianshan. Jiang You led his tribesmen to fly around Shianshan and took away some precious items from the Eagle King's court. As for the bodies of the eagles, they were buried by them. They also simply cleaned up the ruins of the Eagle King's court according to the agreement with the Goblin King Angelic. This place will also be the territory of the winged people in the future. Jiang You decided to build a mountain city here, and let some of the winged people stay here to develop in the future. As the tentacles of the winged people on the mainland in the future development plan, the winged people will still need a long time to grow and evolve. It is difficult to improve the strength in a short time. Jiang You decided to subtly improve the blood of the winged people in the future, improve it generation by generation, and strive to make the winged people evolve into the immortal species he imagined. For this reason, he decided to ask the Goblin King Angelic for some titan bones after he was crowned as emperor. It is said that many dead titans are buried under the Protus mountain. There is still one more time left before the Goblin King Angelic is crowned as the emperor, and the goblin capital is built. He estimated that it would take another year to build this great goblin city after sending a team of winged warriors to station in Protus to gather intelligence. Jiang You returned to the coast of the East China Sea. With a large force of winged warriors, he had just been promoted to legend, and needed to consolidate his realm. By the way, he needed to determine his path after legend as soon as possible. In Jiang Yu's knowledge above legend, there are 3 ways to be promoted. One is to continue on the legendary path, walk in the world, I am invincible, and finally achieve the supreme legend and become immortal. One is the path to godhood, establish the kingdom of God on earth, and finally hold high the throne of God and become a great god. Another is the rarest path of the Sky Lord, which casts a throne in the sky, and finally falls to the earth, turning the world into territory. All 3 paths are extremely difficult. The first kind of human legend, in the future, many great wizards, legendary warriors, paladins, and great priests who have no hope of becoming gods will take this path. This road does not conflict with the road to godhood, and does not pose a threat to the gods. The second road to godhood is the road to godhood. The path of this road is well known, starting with the easy and then the difficult. The legends who take this road must first become demigods, and then they can ignite the divine fire and hold high the throne to become gods. But the position of God is 1 carrot in 1 pit. If the position of God you want to achieve has already been occupied by a god, There is no other way except to kill the god, and killing gods is difficult to imagine. Moreover, there are big and small positions of gods, and the strength is very different. Weak gods are only a little stronger than legends, and they are born to be gods. And the third legendary road is rarely known in the vast starry sky, because this third road and the second road are mortal enemies that cannot tolerate water and fire. After all, one is the coexistence of all gods, and the other is the only absolute. Just think about it and you will know the difficulty between the two, and Jiang You was able to know it because of a unique task he received when playing games in his previous life. However, there is such a method, and I think someone has succeeded. The top of the mountain in heaven, heavy rain fell. Jiang You sat cross-legged on the stone, hesitating about his future choice. His first choice was naturally the road to becoming a god, but in the future, in the later period of the 5th chapter, there was a period called Twilight of the Gods. At that time, the world changed drastically. The kingdom of the gods was crumbling, and most of the gods had to turn into saints to escape. And at this time, a large number of gods were killed by mortals, seized the priesthood, and became new gods. So the gods were not immortal, and the end of the human legend, becoming immortal, is more difficult than becoming a god. And before becoming immortal, the combat power and survival ability are not as good as some gods with weaker divine power. After thinking about it, he looked at his system panel, looked at the talent of the dazzling champion Will, and thought of his original world. In an instant, his eyes flashed with determination. Since he came to this world, what's the point of not becoming the strongest? He wants to take the path of the Sky Lord. He might succeed if he survives until the 5th chapter and waits for the system to unlock. Maybe, after reaching the top, you can find a way back home. Then, how should you go about becoming the Sky Lord? Chapter 36. The road ahead is long. After reviewing the explanation of the Sky Lord in the game data of the previous life, he thought of the path of the gods again. Chapter 5. The path of the gods is no longer a secret. The demigod condenses the heart of the law, establishes the kingdom of God on earth, and then connects the power of heaven and earth, collects faith, and ignites the divine fire. The Godhead is formed, the kingdom of God is held high in the sky, and the throne of God is cast in the sky, holding the power of heaven and earth with the Godhead. The position of God and the priesthood are the true gods. This is to shepherd the people on behalf of the sky and become part of the order of heaven and earth. The Sky Lord is different. Although he also holds power, he needs to rule heaven and earth. Therefore, establishing the sky throne is a necessary step. Before the Lord of the world is truly achieved, the throne needs to suppress thousands of laws. In Jiang Yu's eyes, the law is the Tao, that is, to suppress the world with one's own body and suppress thousands of ways with one's own way. One way suppresses thousands of ways. Therefore, the Sky Lord is the only absolute, and it is okay to call him the only God. In Jiang Yu's view, this Tao is definitely not the laws of the myriad worlds and the 3,000 great ways that exist in the known world, but to create a Tao by himself and suppress the 3,000 great ways. So, how to do it? Jiang Yu looked at the long sword on his waist, and his thoughts emerged like a wild horse. And a lot of knowledge and gains from his previous life flowed in his mind. The knowledge of the two worlds turned into spiritual light and collided between the sea of heart, like standing on the shoulders of a giant overlooking the eternity so sleepless. The spirit is consumed day and night, like an epiphany. Such a high-intensity perception is extremely mentally exhausting. Even as a legend, he gradually became haggard. Finally, 1 year later, various special creations are unique. It was another day of thunder and heavy rain. As if the skylight appeared, the spiritual light was flourishing. An illusory path of advancement was illuminated by his spiritual light. That was an unprecedented way forward. It was extremely difficult, but also extremely glorious. On the mountaintop, the rain was getting heavier. Amidst the thunder and lightning, Jiang Yu suddenly opened his deep purple eyes like the sea of stars. The wings behind him blossomed like clouds hanging from the sky. The rain flowed across his face and wings, like a trace left on his body by a point in the world. His spine was like a dragon. He stood up, holding the long sword at his waist with his right hand, and drew the sword out of its sheath, slashing the sky with a long laugh. I have heard that a strong enough will can even distort the law. Then, I will replace the law with my will and forge a great way. This way has no name, but my will is like a sword that opens the world. It is simple and clear, so I will name it sword. With this, I will forge the throne of the sword above the sky and establish the sword way as the beginning of suppressing all the ways. This sword way is the law of the sword, which is tempered with thousands of laws as nutrients. Finally achieve immortality. Thinking about the way forward, he finally felt relieved. However, the first step is to truly master a law. As the first way to suppress my sword law, my way forward is finally clear. My heart and body are as clear as jade. what I thought and thought came true like a dream. Just when he understood his own path, the champion's will surged like a sword raised to the sky. In his mind, a phantom of a sword composed of his tyrannical will through his mind appeared, and then there were thousands of illusory long swords representing the suppression of countless laws. These thousands of long swords intertwined and merged in his mind. Finally, an illusory throne composed of countless swords appeared in the depths of his mind. At the moment when this sword throne appeared, a violent thunder suddenly sounded in the world. The whole world was shocked. This big world seemed to feel the crisis. Dark clouds suddenly filled the sky and covered the entire sky. The whole world, all living beings, felt uncomfortable in their hearts, as if something precious was about to be taken away. In Protus, the Goblin King, who was stroking his unformed throne, suddenly felt disgusted for no reason, but he was unaware of the target of disgust. Big enemy? Who? Above the vast sea on a hidden island of Wuhua, several ancient dragons were awakened from their slumber. Who has angered the world? All over the world, regardless of race, every legendary strongman felt confused, and a feeling of great opportunity and great crisis suddenly arose. What's the situation? I am already a legend. Why do I still have this palpitation? On the top of Mount Heaven, in the heavy rain, Jiang You suddenly felt a great terror rising in his heart. It was as if the malice of the world appeared in the dark. This woke him up suddenly, and cold sweat poured down from head to toe. It was as if someone was whispering in his ear, "Disrespectful, disrespectful." He quickly dispersed the phantom of the sword throne in his heart, so the vision between heaven and earth disappeared instantly, but he was still frightened. It was just a prototype of the passage, and the malice of the world fell. No wonder no one has ever been able to achieve immortality as a Sky Lord. No. It is extremely rare. This is a way of transcendence that is not recognized by the world. It is really difficult. However, in Jiang Yu's heart, he was not frightened by the malice of this world. Instead, he ignited a fierce fighting spirit, like a burning fire. His ambition is high. This road is exactly the dangerous road that I want to walk through as a champion. This is the beginning of becoming the strongest. He smiled softly. Then the first step is to master the power of the laws you currently have to perfection. I have only grasped the surface of the laws now, so I'd better not touch the sensitive parts of the world's consciousness. Actually, if you look closely, the early stage of this difficult path is actually no different from the path of a demigod. Then first gather the heart of law, become a demigod and wait for the time to move. Thunder. Light. I should start by mastering these two laws, use the road to ascend to the gods as a representation, and do the things of the Lord of heaven and earth. As for the throne, it is being cast later. He raised his head and looked at the bright moon and stars in the sky. There should indeed be more things in the sky. Chapter 37. The beginning of the second chapter, the Goblin King City. In a few days outside Mount Heaven, a winged man hurriedly flew back from the west. He looked anxious, and flew all the way to the white stone castle of Mount Heaven, shouting loudly, "My king! The construction of the goblin's capital, Protus City, has been completed." The Goblin King Angelic announced that the coronation ceremony will be held in a month. Inside the white stone castle, the little turtle lay on the wooden table, snoring lightly. Jiang You, who was dealing with a backlog of things in the tribe, heard the shouting of the winged messenger outside, and immediately stood up from the wooden chair. Angelic, he is finally going to be crowned a Goblin Emperor. This is a classic scene at the beginning of the second chapter. The feeling of witnessing history in his heart is even greater than experiencing years. Waiting for the winged messenger to enter the hall, he announced loudly again. Jiang You asked the guards to take the messenger to rest, and he told his winged assistant, Xiao Yi, "Go and select 800 elite winged people, and go with my guards to Protus with me to celebrate for Amagul." "Yes, my king." A winged girl who was working hard on a wooden table next to him nodded in response. He naturally couldn't manage such a large winged tribe alone, so after returning, he selected dozens of smart and reliable winged people as his administrative assistants. Anona was one of the best and was promoted to assistant by him. After Anona walked out, Jiang You patted the head of the little turtle on the table and smiled. "Zioba, don't sleep. Let's get ready and set off for Protus." The little turtle woke up suddenly, and his confused eyes showed clear stupidity. Far from being as smart as in later generations. "Boss, we're going on a long journey again, so let's set off quickly." He naturally stood up with his two turtle legs, and climbed onto Jiang Yu's shoulders with his hands and feet. He rubbed his sleepy eyes. Jiang Yu smiled gently. With Amagul's coronation as emperor, the world's pattern has changed. No matter how different it is, my starling, will not move. The little turtle raised his head proudly. "Who are you talking to, my starling?" "Boss, I was wrong." The next day 1,000 elite winged people gathered above Heaven Mountain. including 200 guards and 300 extraordinary professionals, enough to support Amagil's sky force. With Jiang Yu's order, everyone followed him to Protus in the west. 1 month later, Jiang You led the winged people to Protus. At this time, on the Protus plain, a majestic city has been built on the mountain also named Protus. Its walls inherited the high walls of the Titans, which were 500 meters high, but the internal buildings were restored to houses that were convenient for goblins and various races on the continent to live in. The design was very orderly, and it looked very much like the appearance of large ancient cities in the previous life. The goblins did not have such architects, and Jiang You had more reason to believe that this was the masterpiece of the human race who walked out of the shelter among the goblins. And at the original city gate, there was indeed a huge skull embedded in the center of the city gate. His open mouth was the entrance and exit of the city gate. Every intelligent race passing through the city gate can still feel the majesty of a demigod and a slight palpitation. It seems that the Goblin King Amagil never breaks his promise. He said that he would cast the head of the Thunder Titan Atra into city gate, and he would definitely do it. Seeing this, the races of the continent not only sighed at the strength of the goblins, but also understood the powerful strength of the goblins, lowered their proud heads, and bowed their heads. This is not shameful. When the Titans were powerful, the goblins also bowed their heads, and were even more respectful. And in Protus, a part of the mountain top was flattened, leaving a large piece of flat land. A gorgeous palace with steam style and pre-Euro-human style was built on it. It was so beautiful that it made people sigh that it was not a creation of the human world. Even Jiang You felt that the design of his own white stone castle was a bit simple. In front of the palace was a vast square, and a stone sculpture of the Goblin King Amagil stood on the square that was the form of Amagil standing with his hands behind his back, looking at the mountains and rivers from afar. When Jiang You saw it, he couldn't help but shout that he was pretending to be cool. Jiang You and other winged people landed outside the city gate, and a goblin official quickly came to them and guided them into the city of Protus. However, the goblin official directly led them to a tall building that looked like a pair of wings spread out. Your Highness the Winged King. This is the station that our tribe has specially prepared for the nobles. From now on, this place belongs only to the Winged Clan. Chapter 38, Hitting the Human Race. Jiang You smiled when he heard this. That's right. Now, our winged humans have a place to stay in the goblin capital. He looked at this tall building with great symbolic significance. The shape of a pair of wings that looked like spread wings made him feel that the goblins had put their best efforts into it. Isn't this the embassy? Actually, on this street there are not only double wing buildings designed for their winged humans, but also dwarf buildings shaped like a hammer, troll buildings shaped like fangs, and fairy buildings shaped like a forest. In addition, there are also half-shaped buildings. Centaurs, mermaids, dwarfs and more. This street seems to be specially built for these Konglong heroes race, the goblin official asked before pushing open the door of the winged human building. Your Highness, this building has not been named yet. You can name it. We will find craftsmen to hang the door sign later. In that case, let's call it the Yaran Embassy. Jiang You said without thinking. The goblin officials were surprised when they heard this. The name you mentioned is the same as the one mentioned in the words of the humans in the refuge. It seems that the rumors are true, and His Highness is indeed close to the humans. In some ways, they and I do have a lot in common. Jiang You laughed. He was not worried about being afraid of the goblins because he was close to the human race. In fact, almost all of the truly powerful human technologies and equipment are in the hands of Goblin King Amagil. The lifespan of the human race is not long. Even if they practice the path of sequence, under the restrictions of the goblins, after a few hundred years, the descendants of the human race will become the ordinary race of Ferland or no threat. For the sake of the future eternal dynasty of the Goblin Empire, Amagil will not do everything possible, but he will use all possible means. However, Jiang You has always been very confused about one thing in the once illustrious pre-Euro-human civilization, the extraordinary sequence system that had developed to its extreme. Was there really no super strong person at the top of the sequence? In the game data, those who reach the top of sequence 1 of each path are also called gods. In front of the Yaran Embassy, the goblin official's sigh interrupted Jiang Yu's thoughts. The human race is indeed a magical race. Then he said solemnly, Your Highness, the exclusive house number will be delivered tomorrow, and we are fully responsible for the food and drinks during this period. In addition, in 1 month, there will be my king's coronation ceremony, so please be sure to attend on time. Jiang You said seriously, I will definitely remember it. The goblin official excused himself politely. At this time, the goblins were dressed cleanly and neatly, with an upright and calm appearance, and they also carried the pride of being the strongest race in the continent. In this way, Ferlander is currently the strongest clan. I don't know how I will be like that in the future. After the goblin officials left, Jiang You led the clan members into the tall, double-wing-shaped embassy. The space inside the embassy is huge, enough to accommodate 1,000 wingmen, and there is even room left originally. These buildings were rebuilt in the palace where the Titans originally lived, and the place was indeed very large. A few hours later the sun is about to set, and the light of dusk fills the sky and earth. Jiang You took a few guards and turtles to stroll around this new goblin city. The houses are arranged in an orderly manner, and the streets are wide and open. It seems that several rings were built to surround a produce mountain in the middle. The entire city is enough to accommodate 1 million people. Amagul's ambition was clearly reflected when he built the city. Finally, he walked up to the high city wall and overlooked this newly glorious city. The newly built goblin capital looked glorious. A vibrant civilization is rising. In the following days, apart from occasionally going out for a walk, Jiang You spends the rest of his time practicing. During this period, he was received once by the Goblin King Amagur in the newly built palace. Amagul was really surprised for a while when he saw Jiang You becoming a legend, and felt more kind to him. But in this era, strength speaks for itself. In today's Ferlander, Jiang Yu's winged human race is the strongest sky army, and it is inevitable that Amagul does not pay attention to it. But when Jiang You walked out of the palace, the goblin great sage walked to Amagul's throne and said with a frown, "Now that the leader of the winged people has become a legend, he is no longer as easy to control as before. 100,000 winged humans are 100,000 flying legion capable of fighting in the sky. Even legends and demigods get headaches. It's not that they're afraid, but it's difficult to solve before becoming a god." Divine power and extraordinary power were two different things. Amagul is a man who has a strong desire for control. Although the trolls are strong, there are a large number of troll clans of different species in Ferland, so he never worries. But the United Winged People have Legend as their leader. Even if they provoke internal strife, they will be immediately suppressed by Legend. This is a trouble, Your Majesty. Perhaps we can form our own flying corps, ourselves? Use those eagle men, Amagul asked doubtfully. It's not them. I went to see those eagle people. They have no spirit at all and are already useless. What I want to say is, we rely on ourselves. Our goblin clan has various knight professions. Why not choose a flying monster as the riding beast of the sky army? The great sage smiled. Hey, that's a good idea. So, does the great sage have any ideas about which kind of flying monster can be used as a mount for our flying knight? Amagul became interested and asked. Griffins. In the previous battle against Titan, didn't we capture a large number of griffins and keep them in prison? The great sage leaned on his wooden staff and smiled. Good. 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 Wonderful. Amagul said 3 good words in a row, obviously extremely satisfied. My great sage is like a fish gaining a water source, like a saber-toothed tiger gaining wings. I will do as you say, he laughed. However, at the moment, we still need to pay enough attention to the winged people. The ancient dragon still doesn't know where it is. The sky troops are indispensable. Then, since the Winged Man King has become a legend, let him serve as the guardian of the Empire's eastern border, the great sage suggested. Can? Amagul nodded. The goblins haven't set foot in that place yet. It's just a false name. Just give it away, and wait for the goblin clan to multiply and develop, and then find excuses to take it back in the future. After studying this matter with the goblin great sage, he was ready to go to the harem to pamper his new beautiful goblin girl. Just when he thought the great goblin sage was about to leave, he saw him stopping where he was and continuing to speak. One more thing, Your Majesty. What's up? Amagul was not impatient at all. Right now, the humans in those shelters are making a lot of small moves and maintaining contact with various races. I think it's time to express our attitude. Hearing this, Amagul frowned. In addition to the strength accumulated by the goblins for countless years, the human race who came out of the shelter was also the most important reason for being able to conquer the continent of Ferland. Without humans, it would be difficult for them to defeat the Titans. We want to beat the human race and let all the races on the mainland see our attitude towards the human race, the goblin great sage said. How? Among those human races, isn't there a woman named Fiona? It is said that in their era, this girl was a shelter manager specially trained by the human race, and she was considered the nominal leader of the human race. I think, Your Majesty, you can marry her as your concubine. Declare your attitude to the world, marry that human woman as your concubine. Amagul felt a little unhappy in his eyes. Beauties among goblins are beauties. Those human women, no matter how beautiful they look, are nothing more than large monkeys in his eyes. He loves beautiful people's green skin. Your Majesty, You will be the emperor of the Goblin Empire in the future, and you need to make sacrifices. Besides, you are only expressing your attitude by marrying her. If you marry her back, you don't need to touch her. You can just keep her as an object in the palace. In this way, it not only knocks down those human races who seem to be bowing their heads but are actually proud, but also makes them actually become a mess. At the same time, it also warns all the races in the mainland. Why not do such a good thing? Oh well, Amagul said helplessly. Okay, I'll take care of this later. Well, there's no need to be so anxious. You will be crowned next month. By then, the queen and concubines will be making their appearance. Hurry. Then half a month later, Jiang You, who was in the Yiren embassy, suddenly heard the news of an explosion. What? That blonde human girl named Fiona married the Goblin Emperor as his concubine. All the winged people were surprised. Really or not, with such huge racial differences, can there be true love? Little Turtle King Zioba also exclaimed. Chapter 39 Concubines. But I heard that after Amagil married the human girl, he never touched her. The winged man who heard the news said, Amagil's taste is still normal, so the meaning of this matter is not as simple as it seems. Jiang You pondered. As the first emperor of the Goblin Empire, he has the ability to found a country and has great talents and strategies. It is not simple to do things. Jiang You thought for a while and finally understood. I understand, he said to the winged officials who followed him. We should not contact the human race recently. Amagil took the human girl Fiona as his harem, but did not favor her. He wanted to express an attitude to us. Boss, what attitude? The little turtle was confused. This thing has a deeper meaning? The ideas of the intelligent race are too complicated. No, I have to learn from you, my dear. I understand too. The winged girl Anona beside him also suddenly realized. Amagul took the woman who is the leader of the human race into his harem, which told us that the human race was his property. Let's not have any ideas about them. I see. Zio Yi, you are very smart, Jiang You praised with a smile. Hey, the winged girl smiled sweetly. Another half a month later the entire new city of Protus became extremely lively. A large number of intelligent races from the goblin camp came to this city, bringing a huge flow of people to this new city. In addition, the goblins have been constantly migrating from all over the continent during this period. At this time, Protus has almost 1 million people living in it. There are more than 900,000 goblins alone. It's so terrifying. This day it happened to be the beginning of spring, when everything revived and was full of vitality. This day, the whole Protus looked solemn and majestic because today is the day when Amagil was crowned as the Emperor of the Goblin Empire. Every goblin looked very happy on this day. Looking down from the sky, all the goblin citizens stood on the street at the foot of Mount Protus, waiting quietly. A large number of goblin soldiers stood on the city walls and streets, facing the direction of the palace on Mount Protus, bowing their heads slightly and touching their chests. In front of the palace of Protus it was a huge square paved with white stone bricks. Jiang You, with several winged relatives and leaders of other races, stood on the right side of the palace square, with a total of several thousand people on the left side. There were goblin nobles and goblin officials headed by the goblin great sage and the goblin high priest, as many as nearly 10,000 people. In the middle of the square, a wide red carpet avenue that could run 4 horses was laid from outside the palace square to the end of the square, and then along the 900 steps to the front of the palace. This is the Coronation Avenue. Elite goblin soldiers stood in every corner of the square, and on both sides of the Coronation Avenue they were armed with sharp weapons, holding long spears and short swords, and their armor emitted a dazzling light in the sun. Solemn and solemn, when the sun rose to the highest point in the sky, Jiang You, who was standing in the queue, suddenly heard a loud and high-pitched announcement. The savior of Ferland, the destroyer of the Titans, the brave and fearless lord of the goblins, the leader of the Continental Alliance, the great leader Amagil, here. Jiang You turned his head and looked outside the square. He saw several goblin professionals walking in front of both sides. The voice just now was obviously made by one of the extraordinary professionals, and Amagil walked in the middle, walking like a dragon and a tiger. Looking down on the world next to him was a female goblin dressed in elegant and luxurious clothes. Behind them was Amagil's group of nearly 300 goblin concubines. Among this group of concubines, Jiang You saw the blonde human girl Fiona, who had met before at a glance, because her height was extremely conspicuous among the female goblins who were less than 1.4 meters tall on average. Jiang You saw her expression now, which was very haggard, and her spirit and energy had dropped a lot. Her beautiful face was also very gloomy, with a kind of sick beauty. She was completely different from the blonde girl back then. Chapter 40 The Goblin Emperor. Just right when Jiang You looked up, the light in Fiona's eyes flickered. but then dimmed again. The sun is clear. Fiona felt like she was in the cold winter, but Amagul's coronation ceremony would not change due to anyone's mood. When Amagul walked through the coronation avenue made of red fox furs, the goblin soldiers raised their spears high above the heads of Amagul's goblins on the red carpet avenue. This form of coronation ceremony made all the tribes on the mainland widen their eyes. They felt that what the goblins were doing was different. This was the atmosphere of civilization. Unfortunately, the irony is that it was Fiona who made such a suggestion. When the bright red carpet came to an end, Amagul turned to look at his wife beside him, nodded, and walked up the 900 steps alone. The Goblin Queen took her 300 concubines along the steps to the small stand on the side. The sun shone on each step, and Amagul climbed up step by step until he stood on the highest step. He turned his back to his subjects and allies in the square, took a deep breath, and then turned around, just like facing all living beings. At this time, the Goblin High Priest standing on the left stood out of the queue, holding a golden gem crown in his hand, and read loudly, "Countless years ago, the world was ruled by titans and dragons, enslaving all races on the continent. The two races fought all the time, causing the earth to crack, the sky to shatter, and the mountains and rivers to reverse, until the king of our clan, Amagul, came out of nowhere and led his troops in battles. He was invincible. He was extremely talented and became a demigod. He worked hard and endured many hardships, and finally drove away the titans in one battle, killed the Thunder Titans, and replaced the Titans and the Thunder Titans. The dominion of the dragon. Now the world is at peace, and all races live in harmony under the rule of the born king, Amagor, who is so powerful in Ferland. Today, on behalf of the Goblin clan, as well as the leaders and kings of all the clans on the mainland, I implore the Goblin Lord Amagul to establish the Goblin Empire. At the same time, please ask Amagul to be crowned a great emperor of the empire under the witness of the mountains and the shining of the sun, moon and stars." After the Goblin High Priest finished speaking, all the Goblin officials and Goblin nobles in the Goblin queue on the left half knelt on the ground and congratulated in unison, "I beg you, Armiger, to be crowned Emperor of the Empire." Right side of the square, thousands of people from all ethnic groups looked at the earth-shattering shouts of entreaty and couldn't help but look at each other. But soon 1, 2, 3, everyone imitated the Goblin officials and nobles on the left, half knelt on the ground, and shouted loudly, "We, the dwarves, implore Armiger to be crowned Emperor of the Empire. We, the fairies, implore Armiger to be crowned Emperor of the Empire. We, the troll clans, implore Armiger to be crowned Emperor of the Empire." The leaders of all the tribes in the mainland are the most aware of current affairs. Jiang You is naturally no exception. I, the winged human race, begged Armiger to be crowned Emperor of the Empire. However, when he raised his head and looked at the towering Amagul, that sentence came to mind again. He takes his place. Well, this was the second time he remembered this sentence. On top of the highest steps, Amagul looked at the surrendered goblins and the various races on the mainland with a look of fascination on his face. "So, is this how the Emperor feels?" That must have been the same feeling when the King of Titans sat on the mountain throne of Protus back then. Jiang Yu shouted helplessly for a long time before hearing Amagul's more majestic voice than before. "Since you all have requested me, I, Armiger, will be the Goblin Emperor from now on." When he finished speaking, the Goblin High Priest walked up the 900 steps and came to Amagul and said solemnly, "Your Majesty, please bow your head for the last time, and let me put on the crown that symbolizes the imperial power for you. From now on, no one can make your Majesty bow his head." "Good." Amagul lowered his head slightly and allowed the Goblin High Priest to put the golden crown on his head. Then, the crowd cheered. Amagul is officially crowned, and his first words after putting on the crown, "I, the Goblin Emperor, Armiger, everyone, stand up. Your Emperor gives you the right to raise your head." Chapter 41. The first year of the Goblin Empire. The first year of the Goblin Empire, Amagul was crowned as the first Emperor of the Goblin Empire, and appointed the most powerful troll clan chieftain as the guardian of the north. He appointed the winged people as the guardian of the east and the sky. He appointed the dwarves as the guardian of the mountains. He appointed the mermaids as the guardian of the West Sea. Every alien guardian is equivalent to Duke of the Goblin Empire. At the same time, all the tribes on the continent who participated in the crusade against the Titans received a certain degree of reward and title. Afterwards, Amagul appointed 2 Goblin Grand Dukes, the eldest sons of the High Priest and the Great Sage, and asked them to establish Goblin principalities in the west and south to expand the territory for the goblins and multiply the population. He ordered the original chiefs of the Goblin tribes to return to their homes, gather the Goblin tribe and build a city, The goblin population is currently tens of millions. In addition to the 1 million goblins in the capital, there are 9 million remaining scattered across the road. Amigo is ambitious and wants to make the goblin tribes in various places flourish and build cities. Finally, there will be a goblin city at every point on the continent. In the future, the city of Protus, which is guarded by countless cities, will be the real capital. Finally, he enfeoffed 300 young goblin nobles who had made great military achievements to establish fiefdoms and open up territories outside the core population area of the Goblin Empire and in the barren lands that the various tribes on the continent have not yet set foot in. These are what Amigo and his goblin officials have done in the past year. 1 year later, at the foot of Mount Protus late at night, the stars are twinkling, the silver moon is hanging high. The beautiful girl with long golden hair closed her notebook, sat quietly on the tree branch, shaking her white and slender thighs, and her voice was leisurely. Fiona, princess, I know all you said. But what is the reason for you to meet me late at night? Opposite her, there was a young and handsome winged man. No, Jiang You, there is one thing you don't know. Angel has begun to arrange people to train Griffin Knights. In the future, when the Goblin Griffin Knights fly all over the sky, the unique status of the winged people will no longer exist. A smart person like you should know the consequences. Jiang You frowned when he heard it. Indeed, if the Griffin Knights form a scale among the goblins, the situation of the winged people will be bad. Although the trolls are strong, they are extremely scattered. The dwarves have Titan blood, but they are restrained by the human weapons mastered by the goblins. Mermaids live in the sea and it is difficult for them to adapt to life on land. The nature of the goblins makes them more casual than the trolls. Although the centaurs are natural cavalry, the threat is behind the winged people. The other tribes on the continent have various problems. Only the winged people, in this era without a powerful sky force. The winged people actually divided the sky kingship of the goblins. This is unacceptable to the ambitious Angel. Fiona smiled slightly as she watched Jiang You ponder. We can help you with this matter. Do you have a way? Jiang You was surprised. Of course, but before that, I need you to agree to a request of mine. What request? Don't worry. It's not too much. I just want a child with your blood. What? Jiang You was stunned. It's really out of the ordinary. What a weird request. In his previous life, he had only seen it in dog blood novels. Fiona was very serious. A few years ago, my tribe actually awakened an old prophet with a high sequence. When I was forced to marry Angel, he used his life to predict the most favorable future for the human race. That is to join your bloodline among the human race. In fact, according to the prophecy, among her and Jiang Yu's descendants, there will be the first king of the human race in the new era, thus getting rid of the control of the goblins. But Fiona concealed it. But I don't understand why, but the prophecy says so, and I believe the prophecy of the elder. Jiang You, please give me a child. Jiang You didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Let's not talk about whether I am willing or not. You are the imperial concubine of Angel. If he finds out, you and I will be in big trouble. He won't find out. I promise you that. Please believe in the foundation of my clan. Jiang You heard her and sighed at her firm eyes. Okay, I agree. So, before that, tell me, what are you going to do to avoid the fate of the winged people being replaced by the Goblin Griffin Knights? Fiona was relieved to see Jiang You agree, and explained, we will take the initiative to apply to raise griffins for Angel. What kind of kin speech is this? Jiang You inexplicably thought of the historical illusions of his previous life. Okay, the night is beautiful tonight. Don't waste time. Let's act quickly. Oh, okay. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Leaving. The night was dark and starry. A silver moon hung high in the sky. The forest at the foot of Protus was illuminated with silver. The breeze gently blew through the full branches of the trees, and the friction made a melodious sound like singing and crying. The heavy darkness enveloped the depths of the forest. Hazy. A beam of moonlight rode the wind, waded through the valley of the mountains, and shone into the bottom of the deep pool. A dreamless night. The next morning the sky was overcast and rain gradually fell. Fiona left in a hurry and quietly returned to the palace on the mountain. In the dark rainy day, as a concubine, she naturally had a room in the palace. Even if the Goblin Emperor Angel had no feelings for human beauties, he would not be so generous as to let his concubine mess around. Standing in the depths of the forest, Jiang You watched the heavy rain fall on the green grass, sighed, and returned to the winged embassy in Protus City. As soon as he entered the embassy, A little turtle flashed over light purple lightning and jumped onto Jiang Yu's shoulder in a few steps. Boss, why didn't you come back all night? Of course I have something important to discuss with those humans, Jiang Yu said calmly. No, why do you have a jasmine-like fragrance on you? The little turtle stood on Jiang Yu's shoulder and suddenly sniffed. Jiang Yu's mouth twitched, and he reached out to pick it up and left it. Wang Xiaoba, you are a turtle, not a dog, and you smell everything. Oh, at this time the winged female official Inona came over with several winged officials and asked, Your Majesty, what did the human race say this time? His winged administrative agency gradually took shape. And the female winged Inona was actually the leader of the officials who helped him handle government affairs. So Jiang Yu told her everything about the conversation with Fiona, excluding the part about giving birth. Inona sighed after hearing it. The luck of this human race is really bad. Now they have become shepherds who help goblins raise griffins. You are wrong. Human race has long-term considerations and is not simple. However, their behavior is indeed very beneficial to us. Jiang Yu smiled. By the way, you pack up and leave the candidates for the embassy. I will go to the palace again today. After bidding farewell to Emperor Amagil, we will go back to Heaven Mountain. Yes, Your Majesty. This time Amagil called Jiang Yu over to actually call on some winged troops to conquer some loyal Titan giants. The opponent's camp has flying units such as griffins and winged birds, so the winged army as needed is a loyal ally of the current Goblin Emperor Amagil, a loyal minister in the eyes of the Emperor. After receiving the order, Jiang Yu immediately led a 3,000-man winged army to Protus and handed it over to the Goblin Expedition General. This time he will not go in person, but let a master-level winged professional lead the army to follow the goblins to go to war. After the winged legion was brought, he could leave. He just stayed one more day because of Fiona's invitation. When he came to the palace of Emperor Amagil, Jiang Yu saw Fiona standing behind the Goblin Emperor Amagil like a lady in waiting, as if reporting something. Seeing Jiang Yu coming, Amagil was delighted. Jiang, thank you for sending troops in time. Those Titan remnants will definitely die cleanly. And the winged people will always be the best allies of the goblins. Everyone in my winged people is very happy to help His Majesty. That's great. After chatting for a while, Jiang Yu said goodbye to Amagil and left. Before leaving, he looked at Fiona deeply. A month later, Jiang Yu and others returned to Heaven Mountain. Chapter 43 Reinhardt. 5 years later, Year 6 of the Goblin Empire, Whitestone Castle in Heaven Mountain. Jiang Yu is dealing with a month's worth of affairs. He now basically practices for a month and then spends a day dealing with government affairs. The sun is high in the sky. The winged female official pushed the door open and entered with an ugly look on her face. Your Majesty, our tribesmen who traveled in the north wrote back, saying that they saw a tribe of eagle people with as many as 10,000 people on a mountain in the Brass Mountains in the north. They seem to be the remnants of the Eagle King's court. Their leader is said to be the 9th prince of the old Eagle King. I remember that there is a new city built by goblins in the River Valley Plain in the middle of the Brass Mountains. There are probably tens of thousands of goblins living there. Why do these remnants of the Eagle people in the royal court dare to live next to the Goblin City? I don't believe that the goblins can't find out about the Eagle people gathering on a scale of 10,000. Jiang Yu frowned. Your Majesty, our people have inquired. In recent years, there have been Eagle people going to Brass City every year. Inona replied. It seems that the goblins still have something to hide from us. Jiang Yu sneered. What should we do? Let these remnants of the royal court eaglemen grow stronger, Inona asked. Forget it for now. These eaglemen will not be able to achieve anything. The goblins will not let us exterminate the eaglemen. When the time is right, we will completely wipe out these royal court eaglemen. Inona, our current mission is to develop our winged people, Jiang Yu said calmly. 10 years later, 16 years of the Goblin Empire calendar. Jiang Yu was practicing on the top of the mountain. His aura was deeper and more majestic than more than 10 years ago. One day the still young and beautiful winged female official suddenly came to him. Your Majesty, there is a human boy who claims to be your son looking for you. On the blue stone on the top of the mountain. Jiang Yu's silver hair fluttered in the mountain breeze. He didn't even open his eyes and said calmly, Where did I get my human son? Let him go back. Can anyone really recognize his father? Okay. Inona turned and walked away. Just as she reached the steps, Jiang Yu suddenly seemed to remember something, opened his purple eyes and said loudly, Wait a minute, Inona, let him come to see me. He remembered that night 15 years ago? Yes, Your Majesty. Not long after, a handsome human boy with blonde hair and purple eyes walked up to the top of the heavenly mountain and came in front of Jiang Yu. The two stood facing each other quietly, silent for a while. A feeling of blood connection suddenly rose in Jiang Yu. Fiona really gave birth to a son. Looking at the determined human boy in front of him, Jiang Yu broke the silence and spoke first. "My child, come to me." The 15-year-old human boy has grown very tall, as tall as Jiang Yu's shoulders. The boy with blonde hair and purple eyes stepped forward more obediently. "My mother said that you are my father." "Yes," Jiang Yu nodded gently. "My son, what's your name?" "My mother named me Reinhardt," the boy answered. "Reinhardt, what a good name. It seems that your mother wants you to be a man like a lion," Jiang Yu exclaimed, and then asked, "How did you get here, child?" "I remember that the goblins have strict control over you, father. I came here on a griffin." The boy pointed to the outside of Heaven Mountain, where a griffin was slowly flying in the sky. Beside it, there was a winged soldier following far away, looking at the griffin in the sky in the distance. Jiang Yu shook his head. "It's too dangerous, Reinhardt. If the goblins find out, you will ride a griffin away privately, which is a serious crime." "It's okay, father, mother will cover for me. Besides, the 19th son of His Majesty Angelic and I are on good terms, so nothing will happen." "Okay, then, you risked coming here. Do you have something to say to me?" Jiang Yu asked. "Mother said that you will definitely teach me to become an extraordinary professional." Reinhardt's face was filled with a bright smile, so sunny. Chapter 44 Legendary Bloodline Inheritance. On the top of the mountain the wind is cool. The huge pine trees on the edge of the cliff are crooked, like a door to the sky. Reinhardt felt the closeness flowing in his blood, and looking at his father with purple eyes and white wings in front of him, he felt a sense of security he had never felt before. Without waiting for Jiang Yu to answer, he recalled on his own. The closeness in the blood made him willing to tell Jiang Yu the stories of these years without reservation. He was fostered in the human tribe since he was a child, living with a group of human brothers and sisters, and was raised by the human elders who came out of the shelter under the education of the elders in the tribe. They learned to raise griffins from an early age and grew up with the griffin cubs. In addition to griffins in the human tribe, there are also a large number of goblin officials and soldiers. They are like the eyes of the Goblin Emperor Angelic, monitoring the development of the human tribe and the progress of raising griffins. Of course, they also shoulder the task of protecting the human tribe. Because of a certain agreement, the elders of the shelter could not teach them some precious advanced knowledge. He had seen many times that the human elders sighed in the middle of the night, which was the pain of the loss of civilization for the continuation of the race. Sometimes compromises had to be made. Until he was 6 years old, he didn't know that he actually had parents. That day the human queen of the Goblin Emperor came to this human tribe where half of them were children. The queen was the nominal leader of the human race. Although she was only a reader of sequence 8, her expertise in the previous era allowed her to lead the human race. Today she brought a large amount of supplies and some resources for cultivation. There were also some human children with extraordinary potential in the tribe, but their talents were extremely low. It may be related to the change of eras, and it needs to be improved from generation to generation. The human queen asked for some career paths of the goblin race for them as the beginning of the new extraordinary power of the human race. This profession is called knight. However, the knight career path that the goblins gave to the human race can only reach the hero level at most. And there is no legendary stage above that. The Goblin Emperor Angelic bluntly said that the legendary path of each profession is the result of countless goblin people's practice from generation to generation. With time and blood and tears it is impossible to give it to the human tribe. In the past life Reinhardt showed a high extraordinary potential, but for some reason the elders in the tribe did not let him become a knight professional, saying that he would have a better future in the future than that night. The human princess stayed in the tribe, and when he was about to fall asleep, she came to Reinhardt's room, hugged him and bowed her head and cried all night. That night the 6-year-old Reinhardt knew that his mother was the princess forced to marry by the Goblin Emperor Angelic, and his father was not the Goblin Emperor, but a big man far away on the east coast of the Ferland continent. He is the guardian of the east border and sky of the Goblin Empire, the Grand Duke, the king of the winged people on the east coast, Jiang You. He was precocious and remembered his mother Fiona's words and kept this secret in his heart. Reinhardt grew up slowly. Although he could not learn extraordinary skills, he practiced swordsmanship day and night. He looked forward to taking his mother away from the palace after he became strong. In this way, 9 years passed, and Reinhardt grew from a child to a handsome blonde boy. A month ago Mother Fiona told him that he could come to Heaven Mountain on the east coast to find Jiang You and asked him to be ready. Then the next day a goblin official came to him and asked him to take several griffins he raised and follow the 19th Prince Angelic to the fiefdom. During this time, he needed to teach the 19th prince and his trusted knights to ride griffins. After teaching these goblin knights, the 19th prince patted him on the shoulder and asked him to do his own thing. Although he got along well with the prince at that time, he could not let him say such words, so he was very confused. "Why do you say that, your highness?" But the 19th prince only said one sentence to him, With a meaningful smile, "I have an agreement with Princess Fiona." So, Reinhardt was able to successfully come to the East China Sea Paradise Mountain. The top of Paradise Mountain. When Reinhardt finished his experience, it was getting dark. The sunset was about to fall, and the red clouds flowed in the picturesque scenery with a sea breeze. Jiang Yu's purple eyes were filled with soft light, and he smiled gently. "Thank you for your hard work, my child. My blood flows in your veins, and you can inherit my legendary path. By the way, I remember that the human race has extraordinary people named sequencers. Why don't your elders let you become a sequencer?" Mother said that the era of sequencers has long ended, and professionals are the mainstream of the era. In this era, extraordinary sequencers have no soil to exist at all, and the various resources required for advancement no longer exist. Reinhardt explained honestly. "I see." Jiang You finally understood. It turns out that in this era, the birth of sequencers is no longer allowed. Sequencers need more long-extinct monster organs to advance, which are simply not available now. Such an extraordinary path has to be developed from scratch once a species extinction occurs. "My son, Reinhardt, come to me and show me your extraordinary qualifications," Jiang You greeted. "Okay, father." Reinhardt stepped closer. Jiang You put his hand on his head. The extraordinary power moved slightly, gathering the surrounding elements, and the breeze blew gently, blowing the golden hair. Reinhardt's body suddenly lit up with white and purple light. "It's also light and thunder?" Jiang You was overjoyed when he saw this and let go of his hand. "As expected of my son. Reinhardt, you have the same extraordinary talent as me. My professional path can be passed down to you in its entirety. However, you don't have wings. Perhaps, you need to make some slight adjustments to your career path, but it's not a big problem." In Reinhardt's expectant eyes, Jiang You stretched out his right hand, surrounded by a hazy halo, and gently touched Reinhardt's forehead. "Now, hold your breath and concentrate." Suddenly a picture emerged in Reinhardt's mind. At the beginning, there was a winged boy holding a brown sword. His sword sparkled with thunder, and his purple eyes were like lightning. Then, there is a picture of the young boy embarking on the path of legend step by step, create a career, discover ways to advance, and finally defeat the legend with a heroic level, and become a legend right where you are. In the end, the picture freezes on several images of a legendary path: Thunder Controller, Wings of Thunder, Holy Wing Walker, Blazing of Holy Thunder. Chapter 45. East Coast, Build 7 Cities. 1 year later, under Jiang Yu's guidance, Reinhardt successfully assumed the role of Thunder Controller and rode back on a griffin on the cliff. Looking at Reinhardt's retreating figure, Jiang Yu's eyes were calm. This year Jiang Yu not only handed over his own practice experience to him, but also told him many historical allusions from his previous life. A large number of historical stories baptized Reinhardt's mind and opened up more possibilities for the future. Other side, after returning to the human tribe, Reinhardt worked harder to raise the griffins, and always maintained a respectful and loyal attitude towards the Goblin Emperor Amagul. The more respectful his attitude became, the more contemptuous the Goblin officials became when dealing with human tribes. Bullying and injustice often occur, but Reinhardt endured it. During the year in Paradise Mountain, he listened to 2 stories told to him by his father. One is Qin Fizi, the founding king of Qin, and the other is Gu Jian, the king of Yu. Whenever he was insulted, he would use their deeds to encourage himself. Decades later, Reinhardt officially became the leader of the human tribe. The number of tribesmen has reached 10,000, and the number of rideable and obedient griffins they raise has reached nearly 1,000. As the humans who came out of the shelter slowly grew old, Reinhardt became the new leader of the race. Amagul's trust in Reinhardt far exceeded that of the humans who came out of the shelter. At the same time, surveillance on the human race was slowly relaxed. Most of the Goblin officials and soldiers originally stationed in the human tribe were withdrawn. The rest basically just stared at the old people who came out of the shelter. Reinhardt endured it and continued to develop his strength in the Goblin imperial court. As the emperor's sons grew up, there was an undercurrent gradually surging for the sake of the supreme emperor's throne, fueled by certain forces. Although Amagul is a demigod, he was actually seriously injured after a battle with the Thunder Titan in his early years, resulting in a loss of life, although he later recovered from his injuries. It seems now that the consequences of his serious injuries are gradually becoming apparent. Demigods have a lifespan of 3,000, and legends have a lifespan of 1,000. Amagul, who is already several hundred years old, is starting to grow old. East Coast, Paradise Mountain, Whitestone Castle. Jiang Yu looked at the development briefing on the winged human race in his hand. After decades of continuous development, the population of the Yaoran tribe has reached 300,000. Under Jiang Yu's personal planning, he designated 7 places on the East Coast with superior geographical location, comfortable natural conditions and rich resources of all kinds. In these 7 places, He asked the winged people to build 7 cities. Each city has a population of at least tens of thousands, and is surrounded by villages of the winged race. At the foot of Paradise Mountain is the newly built largest city of the winged people, which serves as the royal city of the winged people. The original heavenly mountain was transformed into a military camp and royal palace for the Yiren, and was no longer inhabited by Yiren civilians. The 7 cities, in Jiang Yu's plan, are enough to cover the entire East Coast area, forming a point-to-point coverage situation in the plan, with these 7 cities as the center. It is enough to feed millions of winged people. This is the development direction of Jiang You, i.e. human race in the next 1,000 years. As for the extraordinary professionals of the winged human race, they are also growing rapidly. Years ago, the winged human genius Sophia completes the hero-level professional advancement path of the bright swordsman. From this, the advancement path of the bright swordsman profession becomes bright swordsman, wings of light, messenger of light. Other professionals have also been developed by some winged human beings plus learned from foreign occupation systems. It is known that the initial professions of the winged people today are light knight, light swordsman, sky warrior, royal guard, imperial guard, wind messenger, spear warrior, earth thrower, fire burner, etc. Among them, Guangmingxi has the most occupations, while other departments have very few occupations. There are basically no dark-type professions. Today's winged human race has a 1,000-strong heavenly battle group composed entirely of extraordinary professionals. The elite winged army consists of 50,000 ordinary winged people. It can be said that the strength has greatly increased in these years. It was Jiang You who led the winged man battle group to wipe out the monsters on the entire East Coast, allowing ordinary winged man villages to spread throughout the East Coast little by little. And in the recent days, Jiang You also sent Yiren officials to the border between the East Coast and the mainland of Ferland to look for places where a pass could be established. He wants to protect the entire winged human race's living area from intrusion by foreign races and monsters, because with the development of the Goblin Empire, let alone the Warcraft, the goblins developed territory, and the outermost winged villages in the east are almost approaching the East Coast. It has to be said that the goblin race is really capable of reproducing. If there were nearly 10 million goblins before the founding of the People's Republic of China, it is estimated that there are 50 million now. Chapter 46, The Goblin Empire and number 039, S300 years. With the release of Amgel's ambition, the goblin army conquered all directions, and most of the habitable places on the known Ferland continent were pacified. A large number of races surrendered to the banner of the goblins. The villages of the Goblin Empire also expanded to the barren places. With the development of the goblins, and the Goblin Empire has gradually improved its level of mechanical technology, especially because it has obtained part of the heritage of the human race in the previous era. A large number of steam technology creations have been manufactured, although the human race in the shelter did not give all the knowledge to the goblins without reservation. It was enough. The Goblin Emperor Angel attached great importance to the development of this aspect. In his opinion, the human race in the previous era dominated the world with steam technology and sequence extraordinary. Now the sequence is lost, but technology can still be developed. He specially established a Royal Engineering Academy in Protus City to train goblin engineers. These engineers have excellent treatment and education, which is the best place that goblins without extraordinary qualifications can achieve technology, art, extraordinary population and other comprehensive development. The heyday of the Goblin Empire is coming. The winged people also grew and developed in such a rare peaceful environment. 100 years of the Goblin Empire. The winged people built 9 passes on the land near the East Coast, completely protecting a large area of land on the coast of the East China Sea to the outside world. It was declared to resist the invasion of monsters and aliens. After the 9 passes were built, the territory of the winged people was like a country in itself. In order to facilitate the rule, Jiang You called the East Coast and the large area of nearby territory Ascendus. In the winged people language, it means the treasure land given by God to the winged people. As for the Shianshan Mountain and the surrounding land where the original Eagle King Court was located, the winged people also built a mountain city on the Shianshan Mountain, and now there are about 30,000 winged people living there because there is a spiritual object Fengling Yulu on the Shianshan Mountain. Most of the descendants of the winged people living in Shianshan City are wind professionals. 150 years of the goblin calendar. Reinhardt, who is already the actual leader of the human race, broke through to the last stage of the extraordinary professional, the hero level. However, his career path has changed a bit compared to Jiang You. Under Jiang Yu's suggestion, Reinhardt spent decades combining the knight career path of the goblins, his own situation and Jiang Yu's guidance. On the basis of the career of the Thunder Master, he derived the career path and finally successfully advanced to the Holy Lion Knight. This is his derivative of the Holy Wing Walker, suitable for his own heroic career, and his legendary career has also been conceived, named Lionheart King. Since then, the legendary career path of the Reinhardt family has been passed down in the future Thunder Master, Light of Thunder, Holy Lion Knight, Lionheart King. At the same time, most of the human race in the shelter has passed away, and only a few younger human races of the extraordinary sequence are still alive. Among them is Fiona, but she is not as young as she was back then. And the years have left traces on her face. On the side of the winged people, the population of the winged people has reached 500,000. The 7 major cities gradually accommodated a large number of winged people, and the main city under the Heaven Mountain has a population of 100,000. These years Jiang You successively sent envoys to various parts of the continent to establish diplomatic relations with various races, but the results were minimal. Most races at this time were far from a mature system and were still in a tribal system, but the dwarves did establish a dwarf kingdom between the mountains. And the envoys of the winged people were able to establish diplomatic relations with him. The changes between heaven and earth were also obvious. The whole world seemed to have entered a cold winter, getting colder year by year. In the north, a large troll tribe calling itself the Frost Clan had to go south to a northern plain called heirs to avoid the increasingly cold weather in the north, and settled there. This troll tribe was very powerful, and its chief and high priest were both legendary. After understanding the situation, they actively absorbed the advanced goblin culture, took the initiative to join the army of the Goblin Empire, and conquer the rebellious for it. After decades of hard work, their chief was granted the title of Earl by Amigil. Earl of Frost was his name. Heirs became the territory of this troll clan, and many years later, the city of Heirs was established. The Goblin Empire lasted for 190 years. The first Goblin Griffin Knights were established at the beginning. The entire Knight group had a total of 693 Griffin Knights. The establishment of the Griffin Knights made the old Emperor Amigil very happy, and named this new Knight group the Royal Griffin Knights. At the same time, in order to commend the human race for their achievements in raising griffins, Reinhardt was granted the title of Imperial Viscount, and a river valley near the human settlement on the western edge of the Protus Plain was made a fiefdom for the human race. Reinhardt built the first human city here, Rhine City. This fiefdom is also called the Rhine Territory, and the river next to it is the Rhine River. At the same time, under Reinhardt's efforts, each member of the Griffin Knights will be equipped with a human breeder to raise and take care of the griffins for the Goblin Knights. The Goblin Knights did not think it was bad for someone to take care of the griffins for them at this time, but instead thought that this group of humans were very sensible after all, in their cognition. Magical creatures such as griffins are very difficult to serve, far different from horses and mountain deer. Some people are willing to work like slaves and do these hard labors, and they are naturally willing to do so. They just need to enjoy the pleasure of riding a griffin to fight. So more than 600 humans joined the Griffin Knights in this way. These humans worked diligently and never slacked off. So many years later, the griffins taken care of by humans became permanent. In fact, what they didn't know was that as long as Reinhardt gave an order, the humans could change the ownership of the Griffin Knights in an instant. It was in this year Reinhardt asked to welcome back the human queen Fiona. At this time, the goblins had almost completely digested the knowledge and technology obtained from the humans in the shelter, and they were powerful in Ferland. So the role of the human queen was almost non-existent for this woman who was like a mascot in a trophy. The Goblin Emperor had no attention except for the years of the founding of the country, when he made her a female official for a period of time. Because of the lack of talents, his harem was growing day by day, and he was not interested in favoring a monkey who was old in his eyes. Coupled with Reinhardt's loyalty and obedience, Amigul agreed to his request. So, after sitting alone in the deep palace for 190 years, Fiona, the human princess, finally returned to the human race. When Fiona returned to the human tribe and saw Reinhardt again, the mother and son looked at each other and shed tears, looking at the bright blonde girl of the year. Although her face was still young and beautiful, her blonde hair had long been mixed with a lot of white hair. Reinhardt once again remembered his ambition in his heart. He would never let his mother's sacrifice go to waste. The Goblin Empire lasted for 300 years. The genius engineers of the Goblin Empire combined the extraordinary and mechanical power, combined with a lot of predecessors' experience and human science, and finally developed the great heritage of the goblins, alchemy. The birth of alchemy has led to the emergence of a large number of alchemy props. All races on the continent went to Protus to learn alchemy. Even Jiang You sent a large number of winged students to study this year. It was the most prosperous area of the Goblin Empire, but it was also at this time in the Goblin Empire, an event that was enough to determine the fate of the Goblin Empire occurred. Chapter 47: The Death of Amidul. Lucenda's East Coast Heaven Mountain, White Stone Castle. Outside the White Castle, There is a large lawn that is well kept and full of vitality. A group of white birds of light are playing on the lawn. A team of winged soldiers stand solemnly at the gate of White Stone Castle. Several winged officials flew down from the mountain, landed on the lawn, washed their clothes gently, and hurried into the castle peaceful, like a holy land. However, it didn't take long. The tranquil atmosphere disappeared in an instant. It was as if a big stone fell from the sky and hit the water. What? Amagul is dead. In the White Stone Castle, the middle-aged male winged official sitting in the government hall stood up directly from his seat, with a look of shock on his face. Edward Inona, sit down. On the main seat, Jiang You sat upright on a large chair covered with bearskin. On the wall behind him, a map of Las Indies and the East Coast was hung. He looked at the extremely surprised ministers and frowned. A female winged official who had helped him handle government affairs had passed away 100 years ago. Perhaps because of the busy government affairs, Inona had never cultivated to the hero level until her death. And her lifespan was only 200 years of the master level. Edward Inona in front of her was her most outstanding grandson, and he was also a master level. However, it might be because Inona's ability was too strong. Jiang You always felt that Edward's ability was slightly different. However, there were still several winged officials sitting in the government hall, both men and women. Although they did not stand up, there was also a look of shock in their eyes. Although Jiang You was also shocked by the death of Amagul, his will now was like the bright moon in the sky, unmoved by the 8 winds. He asked the female winged person standing in the hall, Elena, tell me everything that happened in Protus recently. Yes, Your Majesty. Seeing Jiang You calm down, Elena began to narrate, or rather, recite. The information comes from the winged embassy of Protus. 3 months ago, the conflict between the 17th and 13th princes of the goblins intensified, and the subordinates of both sides were almost fighting to the death. The goblin queen Alessa had to mediate in person, because Amagul lived too long. Several older princes have died except for the 7th prince, who has achieved legend and has no interest in the throne. The rest of the princes are not legends. Even if they have achieved the hero level, their lifespan is no more than 500 years. Among the princes, there are also different talents. The 13th Prince Milan Amagul and the 17th Prince Ashau Amagul are the 2 most talented and ambitious princes alive. 2 months ago, a fierce conflict broke out again between the 2 princes. But this time, even Queen Alessa couldn't mediate. What happened? 2 months ago, during the hunting competition held by Emperor Amagul, while the 17th prince was out hunting, his childhood sweetheart, who was said to be the most beautiful goblin among the goblins, was abducted by the 13th prince and presented to Emperor Amagul. Emperor Amagul is a beauty, and this is something that Ferland knew. At the first sight of the 17th prince's childhood sweetheart, he was deeply fascinated, even though he knew that the female goblin in front of him was his son's future wife. He didn't expect that the little goblin girl would grow up to be so beautiful, so he pretended not to know and directly took this beautiful goblin girl into his harem. So, when the 17th prince came back with a prey, everyone was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that. He just wanted to show off in front of his father, but when he came back, his house was robbed. After learning the truth, the 17th prince was furious. That night, he led his own guards to attack the 13th prince's tent. The 13th prince did not expect his younger brother to be so strong and was seriously injured on the spot. After escaping with great difficulty, he ran to Amagul, who had already returned to the palace with a beauty, to complain. Seeing that his son was almost killing another son, Amagul was furious. He immediately ordered that the 17th prince be whipped 50 times and be placed under house arrest in the palace. He would be released only when he realized his mistakes. After this incident, the 17th prince knew that his life was over. He would never be recognized by Amagul again. The throne was completely out of his reach for him. The 17th prince was stubborn. When he was under house arrest in the mansion, he sent someone to find Amagul to ask for his fiancée, but Amagul refused to admit it. This made the goblin 17th prince completely collapse. So just a month ago, the 17th prince pretended to admit his mistake and entered the palace. That night, a very fierce battle broke out in the palace. Most of the palace collapsed, and half of the palace was corroded by evil forces. After that, the 17th prince never walked out of the palace again. The next day, there was news that Amagul was hit in the heart by his own Amagul's gun, and was seriously injured and close to coma. Then, when the news came again, it was the news that Amagul had passed away, and the 13th Prince Milan Amagul hastily ascended the throne in front of the emperor's spirit. Jiang You listened to it with a confused face, and only felt that the 17th prince that Elena talked about seemed like a person called Shou Wang in the ancient world in the previous life. However, this goblin prince was much braver than that unlucky guy. Chapter 48, The 300 Years of the Winged Family. What a loving father and filial son, and a friendly brother and respectful younger brother. In the government hall, a group of winged officials opened their eyes wide. However, Jiang You still found something confusing. Angel's old injuries have not healed, but he is a demigod. How could he die easily? The 17th prince who entered the palace did not have this strength, so who killed Emperor Angel? Jiang You was extremely confused in the government hall. After being surprised, several winged officials showed joy on their faces when the goblin Emperor Angel was in power. He suppressed the continent, and all the tribes on the continent dared not disobey. It was like a mountain pressing on everyone's head. Now that he is dead, everyone is relieved. Then some ideas that had never been thought of before appeared. The officials made suggestions one after another. Your Majesty, once Angel dies, will the Goblin Empire fall apart? As a demigod, Angel is the pillar of the Goblin Empire. Now that he is dead, the Goblin Empire will inevitably be in chaos. Your Majesty, why don't we take the opportunity to go west and expand our territory to accommodate more people in the future? Yes, Lascendis is big, but it is only a corner of Ferland. We need more resources and land. Your Majesty, the Goblin Empire has no demigod sitting in front of it, and the races on the continent will not miss this opportunity. We can definitely get involved, Your Majesty. I think if we contact the races on the continent, our number of legends and the quality of our army may not be inferior to the goblins. Your Majesty, Jiang You sat at the top, watching the winged officials below express their opinions, and a look of relief emerged in his eyes. It is a very good phenomenon that the winged people can boldly consider the winged race and are not afraid of offending the goblin race, the current overlord of the continent. But he knows in his heart that this is far from the time to compete for the resources of the continent in the future. The 5th chapter of the Elf Kingdom records that the Goblin Empire has existed for 3,000 years. During these 3,000 years, the person who had the greatest influence on the Goblin Empire was not the first Goblin Emperor Angel, but the great sage of the Goblin clan, Azeba. There are many missing historical records, but in the description of the great sage Azeba, in the chapter of Titans and Dragons, the Goblin great sage Azeba was born in a small mountain village in the middle of Ferland. He was gifted since childhood and was sent to the Goblin royal court by his tribe. He was accepted as an apprentice by the Goblin sage Agrigo. At that time, Azeba is kind, wise, good at planning, and has a brilliant vision. When the Goblin Emperor Angel was still a teenager, he was valued and supported by Azeba. The records after that are not detailed. But there is another wonderful place, that is, before the establishment of the Goblin Empire, Azeba obtained a lot of precious knowledge and treasures in a secret place in the north. The Goblin Empire was able to rise. This great sage Azeba lived until the end of the Goblin Empire. Whenever the Goblin Empire was in danger, it was the great sage who came forward to suppress the situation and make the empire pass smoothly. There is no doubt that after Angel's death, the Goblin great sage Azeba was the uncrowned king of the Goblin Empire. The fact that he lived for 3,000 years is enough to arouse people's associations with the lifespan of goblins. Legends can't live for 3,000 years. Waking up from his contemplation, Jiang You looked at his own officials below, met their expectant eyes, nodded, shook his head, and said with a smile, Edward, Murand, Shaman, Wayne, Lemuel, you all said very well. I am very pleased to think of these, but the timing is not right. The Goblin Empire is not as simple as it seems. It has a lot of background. I guess they may have a demigod hidden behind the scenes. So, at this stage, our tribe can just keep our troops in place. Seeing that the officials in the government office were thinking, Jiang You nodded and ordered one of the male-winged people, Jamora, you send people to Protus to inquire about the news day and night and inform us. Yes, Your Majesty. Jamora took the order to leave the government office and went to arrange work. The remaining officials continued to work. Jiang You walked out of the white stone castle, and before leaving the door, he turned his head and asked the female-winged person Lemuel, by the way, Lemuel, where's your sister Sophia now? Sophia is the genius who pushed the light swordsman profession to the heroic light messenger. Your Majesty, a few months ago, Sophia went to the southern fairy forest to celebrate her friend, the light fairy, for her 1,500th birthday. How much? 1,500 years. Jiang You was stunned for a moment. These fairies are really long-lived. Okay, Lemuel, Sophia is the most important legendary seed of our tribe, and we must make sure she is safe. Jiang You waved his hand. He always treats the geniuses in his tribe preferentially. It has only been a few hundred years since the winged people evolved from the eagle people. Even though their ancestors were soaked in some Titan blood, It also gave the Gaoman mountain eagle people, who originally had no extraordinary qualifications, extraordinary potential so far. The extraordinary potential of the winged people is roughly equivalent to that of the goblins. There are only dozens of legends among 50 million goblins, and 500,000 winged people still need to work hard. Sophia contains Jiang Yu's hope. Having mentioned this, Jiang You looked at the young male wingman official sitting in the middle seat. Wayne, has there been any extraordinary genius in the clan recently? Your Majesty, there is one. Oh, who is it? It's Lemuel and Sophia's sister. Evita, Wayne said with a smile. Evita has a strong talent and understanding in the light system. She is only 13 years old, but she is already a professional. Jiang You couldn't help but turn his eyes inside again, looking at Lemuel with a proud face, and exclaimed, 3 heroes in one family. Lemuel, not bad. Not bad. You all have to keep working hard. I hope that the first legend of our winged people besides me will be born in your family. Lemuel, your full name is Lemuel I. Your Majesty has a good memory, so you are the descendants of Ali. It has been 300 years without knowing it. There are so many descendants of the companions back then, Jiang You exclaimed. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Rebellion of the Kings. After March, new news came from the capital of Proto-Samagul's sons were dissatisfied with the sudden ascension of the 13th prince to the throne. They fled from the imperial capital to their fiefdoms, contacted their relatives, and raised troops to rebel among them. The 15th prince, the 18th prince, the 21st prince, and the 25th prince were raising troops in the fiefdom. They want to remove Milan Amagil from the throne. The armies of the 4 princes and the second Goblin Emperor fought in darkness within the empire. There are 1,500 noble lords in the Goblin Empire. Except for the 2 Grand Dukes on the border, 30 marquises, and more than 500 earls, viscounts, and baronies, the rest of the noble lords are all involved in the rebellion. As for the various ethnic groups in the mainland, they are also starting to make moves. Some races even directly joined the camps of several princes, just to obtain the greatest benefits. As the alien race closest to the imperial capital, Reinhardt, the leader of the tribe, was reading a letter in his hand. Reinhardt, my brother. My father died mysteriously, the kings were fighting, and countless people of the empire were killed in this war. I had no intention of competing, but I also knew that I wanted to stop this rebellion. I have secretly received the support of the Grand Duke of the South, Maro Aziba. I know that your human tribe also has the ability to ride griffins. I would like to ask your tribe to ride on griffins and fight for me. After that is done, I will lift many of the bans imposed by the goblins on the human race and give the human race a land in the land of the north. If you choose to support me, please send an envoy to inform me within 3 months, and I will raise troops in the near future for marching and deployment. Inside the tent late at night, Reinhardt frowned and looked at the letter from the 19th prince in his hand, remaining silent beside him. Several human elders and Fiona were there. They also circulated the letter written by the 19th prince to Reinhardt, and they had different opinions. Some people think that this move is too risky. There are only tens of thousands of humans now, and they are under the eyes of the goblins day and night. Some people think that they can support this 19-year-old prince. After all, he is in prison near the goblin imperial capital. The human race may suffer disaster at any time due to the emperor's mood. At this time, there is a chance to leave the imperial capital and they can take a gamble. Anyway, under the nose of the goblin emperor, it is difficult for the human race to develop. It took them 300 years to reproduce tens of thousands of people. Everyone had different opinions, and Reinhardt was having trouble making a decision. This is a decision related to the fate of the human race, and the pressure in his heart is too great. At this time, only his mother Fiona has not expressed her opinion. Reinhardt asked directly, Mom, how do you think I should decide? Today's tens of thousands of humans were developed by the old people in the shelter who gave up everything. He knew that Fiona loved the humans more than he did. Fiona smiled at him. My son, you are now the leader of the human race, and you have to bear the responsibility for the life and death of the human race. But you can ask your father about this matter. I think he will not miss this chaos in the Goblin Empire. Chance, after hearing this, Reinhardt raised his head and looked towards the distant east, which is the direction of the east coast. Father, I understand, Mother. From the imperial capital to the east coast, it only takes more than a month to ride a griffin. If there's enough time, I will go there myself. 20 days later, Reinhardt came to the East Coast again. Chapter 50 Aziba. The East Coast at this time is completely different from what it was 300 years ago. 9 passes were established on the mainland near the East Coast. Not only are the winged people stationed in the 9 major passes, there are also winged people patrolling day and night in the air above the connecting lines of the 9 major passes. Come here. Reinhardt was quickly discovered and intercepted by the wingmen. He also had to show his identification before he could enter. Back then, Jiang You gave him a pair of flying wing jade as a token when he left. He kept it and put it to use today flying over Lascendis on a griffin. Reinhardt saw a large number of winged people living quietly and peacefully on the East Coast and the nearby lands, villages, fields, and 7 cities that are like regional centers. These seem to have changed a lot, much different than when he first came to Heaven Mountain. If this place was a tribe the last time I came here, now it is a kingdom. He was very envious, and he looked forward to the day when humans would be able to establish a kingdom of their own on the land of Ferland. Thinking of this, I suddenly made up my mind. No matter whether Jiang You participated in this chaos or not, whether I suggested that he participate or wait, he would join in, not for anything else, just to find a land that truly belongs to your own tribe. Flying all the way, Reinhardt riding a griffin is very strange in a country where the sky is full of winged people. However, the human race is still a tribe that is relatively close to the winged people, and most of the winged people basically take a glance and ignore it. A few hours later, Reinhardt arrived at Heaven Mountain. This time, he also let the griffins play nearby, and he also showed the token, and then walked all the way from the bottom of the mountain to the white stone castle. The sun was shining brightly at this time and the mountain views were excellent. Jiang You was not inside the white stone castle, but was waiting for him on the lawn outside the castle. After nearly 300 years, although they have always been in contact with each other through letters, Jiang You and Reinhardt have only met a handful of times due to the historical reasons of Armiger's reign. The last time we met was 30 years ago. Look at the son in front of you. The once blonde boy is now a middle-aged tribal leader who is beginning to show his dignity. His blonde hair, which was the same as Fiona's, was as thick as a lion's hair on his head. Jiang You has no feelings for Fiona, but he still has feelings for his son who is connected by blood. Reinhardt traveled thousands of miles to come to the East Coast in person. There must be something that needs his help. Really, the moment Reinhardt saw Jiang You, he spoke directly. Father, I need your help. Maybe it's because of the recent rebellion of the Goblin Kings. Yes, Father. The 19th Prince once gave me a letter, asking me to send troops to support him, and the reward was very generous. But I have been undecided, so I came to ask my father for his advice. Reinhardt, you have to remember that you are not only my son now, but also the leader of the human race. Being involved in the battles between kings is too dangerous for the human race at this stage. Once something happens, it's beyond redemption. Take me for example. Even though the winged human race has developed to this point, I am still walking on thin ice. The reason is that our strength is too weak. Although Jiang You didn't say it explicitly, he actually advised Reinhardt not to take risks. Reinhardt had a strong look of unwillingness in his eyes, but he knew that Jiang Yu's consideration was right. This contrast between reality and ideals made him breathless. Bring that letter to me. Jiang You took the letter and read it carefully until he saw the name of the Grand Duke of the South, Milo A's, and his eyes froze. Reinhardt, what is the relationship between this 19th Prince and the Grand Duke of the Southern Territory, Milo Azib? Is Milo's support reliable? Father, I only know that the 19th Prince grew up with Milo. They are like brothers. Grand Duke Milo has an excellent reputation, so what he said should be true. Okay, Reinhardt, I take back what I just said. You can give your full support to the 19th Prince. Father, do you agree? Reinhardt said in surprise. Yes. In addition, when you encounter difficulties, you can seek help from the Suspect clan. If the place is too strong, I will take action. Jiang You said with a smile. My stupid son, I'm afraid you don't know the value of these 3 words. Aziba. 3,000 years of Goblin Empire. Aziba has been throughout the entire history. Same day Reinhardt rode his griffin back to the Rhine territory on the edge of the Protus plain to reply to the 19th Prince. September of the 300th year of the Goblin Empire calendar. Autumn is coming, and the autumn wind is chilling. Asa Emagil, the 19th Prince of the former Goblin Emperor, raised troops in the southern border, and Grand Duke Mero Aziba of Nanjing led troops to support him. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.